What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. Hi. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It is it's November 18th here in sunny California. Sunny today. It's been raining, which is always the weird thing, because of how quickly all of the ground fills with water and starts flooding everywhere. We've been under a flood watch. No, what's the worst one is warning. Watch is before that. I forget. I don't know. There's a lot of water. There's more to come, but right now it's sunny, so who cares, right? We're here. It's November. We're in the thrust of, I don't know, video game season, right? And I don't know what that means anymore. I really don't. You know, it used to be pretty clear. Like, all right, every gigantic game is going to release over the next 9 days. I hope you don't have family at home that want to see you because you're going to be in a bunker reviewing games. But anyway, it does mean that Call of Duty is out. And what a game. I wrote a full review of Call of Duty Black Ops 7. If you want to read like 4,000 words on Black Ops 7, you can. It's available over on Patreon, patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Dopeassvideogames.com will get you there as well. But that's available for free. You can just go read that for free. But if you sign up, you get an ad-free version of this very podcast. You get a bonus podcast every week. Early access to the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame and so on and so forth. Black Ops 7 is funny, man. I don't know. Okay, so remember a couple of years ago when they put out a game and called it Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And it was, like a sequel to the reboot of Modern Warfare 2. It was not a pure reboot of the game Modern Warfare 3 from all of those years ago. They did a thing with that game seemingly because the talk at the time was that Modern Warfare 3 was originally supposed to be DLC for the previous year's game, which was the reboot of Modern Warfare 2. And so it seemed like that game was originally just supposed to be a paid add-on to the previous year's game, which would have been the first time they had ever done that, and would have been crazy. At some point in development, they said, no, it's a full-fledged game. And also tried to say, and it was never paid DLC, which seems to fly in the face of a lot of the reporting that was happening around that time. Who do you believe? I don't know. Anyway, when you look at the game Modern Warfare 3, it's easy to look at it and go, oh yeah, this is clearly meant to be bolted on to last year's game. It's the 1 year where they did carry forward skin purchases. So any characters you bought from previous year's game are still in that one. There was a lot of carryover from the guns into the multiplayer, though they added new guns. And the campaign was very different. The campaign was built out of like duct taped together parts of the multiplayer and some war zone and some, like, they tried to make this more open combat zone kind of concept where you would go in and be like, you've got to find the 4 cases to open this up. And so you're like, oh, well, we're running around this big kind of multiplayer level, but it's just full of AI and we're gunning them down. And oh, all right, I guess. And it was not very good. At the end of the day, it was not very good. They lost out on kind of the most of the big cinematic crazy moments that you think you want out of a Call of Duty campaign, because it just, it didn't traffic in that to the full degree. It did have some kind of more traditional levels in there, kind of mixed with the open combat zones, but it wasn't enough ultimately. I set this up this way because Black Ops 7 feels like it is to Black Ops 6 as Modern Warfare 3 was to Modern Warfare 2. I don't get the impression that this was ever DLC per se, but it does feel like something that was made maybe a little quicker than normal. It is back-to-back Black Ops games, which is sort of a weird thing for with the way that Call of Duty traditionally rotated through the different little sub-franchises or whatever. But the campaign is once again, let's call it non-traditional. I think in a lot of ways, this campaign feels like the fully realized vision, or a much more realized vision, of the thing they were trying to do with Modern Warfare 3. Insofar as it is built largely from multiplayer parts. In fact, when you load it up and look at the menu, it is just billed as co-op campaign. It defaults to Fill Squad being on. You have to kind of go out of your way if you want to play this campaign by yourself. And I'm going to tell you, like, in no uncertain terms, because it's become one of the larger questions about this that people have. Yes, you can play the campaign alone. Two things here. Two options. One, do not play the campaign alone. Even just playing it with strangers, you'll have a better time with it than you would by playing it alone. Two, if you refuse to do one, don't play the campaign. It is bad alone. It is bad, dude. Like, it does not feel good. It is built in such a way that if you go down, someone is supposed to be able to run over and get you back up. Like, that is the game they are making. The penalty for death is very small. The world state doesn't really change as much as, it's not like a full reset. Don't. Just play it with other people. Let strangers fill into the game. Like, the worst thing that'll happen there is that a stranger will not run to the objective, and a cutscene might take a little longer to start than normal, and that's frustrating. But ideally this game is played with, like, you've got 3 friends and you're all going to play through the campaign, which is great because theoretically then you're talking on voice chat and not paying attention to any single thing the game is telling you about the story or any other aspect of the game. This game is weird because it follows up from events not only from Black Ops 2, which was the last futuristic Black Ops. This takes place 10 years after the events of Black Ops 2. But it also traffics in the exact same boogeyman spooky gas that was the crux of Black Ops 6. And so they're kind of, in a lot of ways, this is like, they just told the Black Ops 6 story again, but instead of it being in the 90s, it's in 2035. They told it way worse, and the campaign has way less variety in it. Like, the Black Ops 6 campaign last year is, like, by Call of Duty standards, an amazing campaign. One of the best they have ever done. And that is even only clearer now that this game is out. But in this game, it's set in the future. You're playing as the son of Alex Mason, who was the protagonist of Black Ops 2. Alex Mason is the guy from the numbers from the original Black Ops. He's long dead. And so you're playing as his son, as you did in Black Ops 2. It's like kind of following on from the events of that game ever so slightly. But ultimately, it is like all of that stuff is so superficially duct taped onto the story. Like, oh, we're going to bring back the bad guy from Black Ops 2. But really... Okay, so the thing that happens in this game is you're sent in because, like, there's a PMC. There's something going on in this place, Avalon, which was also a location, I think, featured in last year's game. And you are part of the government forces, and there's a PMC that you don't know is evil, but they're evil, of course. And they are using the same nerve agent crazy making gas that was the focus of the Black Ops 6 campaign. Just so happens they got their hands on it and whatever. And so, like, normally Black Ops waits until the final third, like their third act twist. The story twist in every Black Ops game is, oh shit, you were under mind control, or oh, you were dead the entire time. Like one year they went all the way, and they're like, this whole campaign happened in your dying moments, and you're dead. Weird. Like, like, but generally it is supposed to be some kind of weird mind fuck, man. Like, oh my God, this was MK Ultra, mind control, this and that, conspiracies, man. Like that's the, the original game was like a Fight Club thing. Because that's how old the original Black Ops is. They're like, we're going to do a Fight Club thing. But the original thing is like, Alex Mason escapes from this horrible prison, and he escapes alongside Victor Reznov, and then you discover, like, Victor Reznov, he's been dead for 5 years. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was just all in his head. Okay, got it. So that's been the thing that they've trafficked in all along. Here, you're in the first mission, and they're like, whoops, you got hit with the crazy gas. And now you're going to have hallucinations, which at first you're like, why are all 4 members of this squad having a shared hallucination? They do have like a line of dialogue. They do kind of have a moment there where they justify why that's happening. It's because it's the future, and all your viewpoints are linked for soldier stuff. And whatever. But then it just becomes like this kind of half-assed retelling of some of the events of Black Ops 2, but with the added problem of crazy gas. And so the crazy gas means like, oh, you're reliving the story of Frank Woods being like left to die in a shipping container. You remember from Black Ops, you remember from the old Black Ops, which I feel like at this point, no, you don't, you probably don't remember. I like those games, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Or like, you've got to get to the president. It's 2020, it's 2025, the far-flung future, and you're in Los Angeles. And so you play kind of versions of those objectives from the old game, but because you're on crazy gas, it's like you're running along the freeway and it's twisting and there's cars driving above you and you're running up the side of a freeway because you're tripping. And, and also zombies, and also like weird. I think when you put your reticle over them, the name that appears over their head is just fear. But like they're weird looking zombie dudes or ghosts or whatever. Because you're tripping. And then you find you're this leads to moments where you're fighting like a gigantic plant monster, which for a game that before release people were like, well, I don't know, Battlefield 6 seems like it's going more boots on the ground and more serious. What's Call of Duty Black Ops 7 going to do with the skins situation? Because they've been so ridiculous. Like, people were asking the wrong questions. The idea that you were like, I think it'd be cool if maybe the skins were a little less Snoop Dogg this year. Dude, you fight a giant plant monster in this game. And that's in the first half of the thing. By the way, the plant monster has the ghost of Frank Woods in it. It's like they just that's the game they're making. And so you fight these giant bosses, and then you regain a grip on reality, and then you have some radio chatter with someone who says like, you guys were off the grid for hours. And you're like, whoa. And then you trudge on, and only to discover like, oh, now we're tripping on the gas again. And because there's 4 members of the squad, each one of them gets to relive some trauma from their past, which most of them conveniently tie into the events of Black Ops 2. And then it's over. I don't know. Like, it's the hardest thing in the campaign is that sometimes there are objectives where they say like, you need to find the computer to open this door, and they don't point you in the direction of it. So it's just 4 players running around a room that has no enemies in it going, where the fuck is the button? What the fuck am I looking for? Like, that was the thing that took the most time in the campaign. It doesn't have any difficulty settings. It does seem like it scales for the number of live players that are in there. But because it's an online co-op campaign, it comes with a lot of the, and they probably could have engineered some of this better, I think, but like there are no mid-mission save points in this game. When you quit, you will need to restart from the beginning of the last mission you were on. And some of those missions can be kind of long, and so you might lose 40 minutes of progress because you're like, oh, I gotta go. So you know, you are match made into a level, you know, and that level you pick which level of the campaign, the highest one you want to play, presumably, because you're playing through it once and only once. And then, you know, yeah, when you die, you're not reset to the very beginning of the level or anything like that. But if you quit, you're quitting the level and you need to play the level again, just like it was zombies mode, which zombies mode has an allocate. Like there is an allowance there that they built over the last few years here, where if you're playing zombies mode alone, you can quit and save. But you know, they have not done that for the campaign yet. I would not be shocked if they added this of overtime. Or they just eventually said, oh, fuck it, no one cares, because anyone who was going to play it already played it or whatever. But that also means that you cannot pause the game. So even when you're playing alone, the game treats it as an online server connection kind of thing and does not let you pause it. That sucks. But it's an online video game, you know? So it comes with the caveats that online video games come with, right? And I think they could have engineered that stuff a little better if you're playing alone. But remember, my advice here is if you're going to play it alone, fucking don't play it at all. Like, don't do it. It is a fucking, it is not for you. If you're coming into this going, I'm going to play the Call of Duty campaign and I play alone and I do this, and like, just don't. It's not worth it. It's not good enough. And it is way, way, way worse when playing alone. So I just don't. Just match in with strangers, and between every level it will matchmake again. This also means that, like, if a player quits while you're playing, you're just down a player. And again, it does seem like the difficulty scales, so that's not like some end of the world type thing. But if you're in a 4-player match and someone decides to leave, you're playing that rest of that level as a 3-player match. But when you hit the next, like, end of chapter moment, it will go into the matchmaking pool again and find someone and pull them in. So you might end up going from 3 players to 4 players, down to 2 players, to back up to 4 players, you know, as you kind of go through the game. It's crazy. I at least appreciate, Ben in the chat says, don't forget the unskippable cutscenes when you try the mission again. So that's not true. You can, if everyone, and I think this is like, it's like Monster Hunter rules, if I remember right. But if you have seen a cutscene before, you can skip it. If you have seen it before, you can skip it. And so that means if you played a level and then quit out again, you can skip it. However, if you're playing with other players who haven't seen that cutscene yet, you will just sit at a loading screen and it will show in the corner like who is checkmarked and who is got an eyeball, and the people with the eyeball are still watching the cutscene, and the people with the check marks are ready to go. And so you cannot skip the cutscenes. It just means that you skip the cutscene, but you stare at a loading screen for the duration of the cutscene instead, because some other player hasn't seen it before. These are like interesting things. If you were ever going to play these levels again, don't. There's no reason to play it twice. Like, just fucking don't. So, it is a very different campaign than they have done before, obviously. Like, it is dramatically different to the point where it doesn't even feel like Call of Duty. The time to kill on enemies is ridiculous. It is maybe the most bullet spongy enemies I have seen in a video game in the last 5 years. And that's only because I don't want to think that hard, but it could be of all time. It's crazy how many bullets some of these fucking robots and guys take. And you're just fighting guys and robots pretty much the entire time, unless you're tripping, and then you're fighting guys, robots, and weird ghosts. And occasionally spiders, the weird alien spiders that look like the things from the end of Contra. And so there's a weird upgrade process that happens as you go, where it'll be like, oh, you've got double the health now. Like, oh, you've got an extra 25 hit points, which is like a funny thing to say in a Call of Duty game. Or like, oh, you'll find little stations that'll upgrade the rarity of your weapon, which makes it do more damage, and you're finding different weapons and items and perks and things as you go. And some of that stuff's like interesting. Like you find one that makes it so you can jump super high, and you have a wingsuit, so like you can just like kinetic jump as high as you can go, and then wingsuit across a whole area. Or like, hey, you have a grappling hook, and you can grapple, and like the grappling hook is really fun. You grapple up onto a roof and shoot somebody, but because it sometimes takes a zillion bullets to bring something down, you don't feel like you're doing like cool stuff. You feel like, oh, I grappled up to this guy and then I shot him in the face with literally 100 bullets, reloaded this LMG, sat there in front of this enemy, taking this gun apart and putting it back together, and then put another 20 shots into him to finally bring him down. It's crazy. How fucking much it takes to drop some of these enemies. I appreciate it as a thing that is like, again, if you're looking for a traditional campaign, it's very disappointing because it's super not that. But it's interesting in its own weird way. I wish that the story was better or more interesting, and that the enemies and the number of bullets it took to drop an enemy, like all, if that stuff was just tuned better to make it more fun, like I think they'd really be onto something here. I think it's a shame that it happens in lieu of a traditional campaign, because that stuff, like the traditional campaigns, when they're good, they're really good. But this, like, at least it has something. Like, I was interested to play it to completion. I was like, okay, like, I think a lot of this story stuff is incredibly stupid, and I think that there are really, like, it's completely ridiculous, but I at least want to see how over the top this thing gets. And then it ends in a thing that is, like, not nearly as over the top as you want it to be. It's a sort of thing that's like, okay, for a game that was all about all this crazy shit happening in our head, it sure does end with us just knocking this lady out and capturing. It ends in like this very like, oh, by the way, anyway. So the other thing is the ending is just the beginning in a lot of ways. Legion's Arcade says there's literally a USS Obama in this game. Yeah, that's from Black Ops 2. Like, that's the aircraft carrier from Black Ops 2. The USS Barack Obama is in this game. However, in this game, you are on the deck of the USS Obama fighting a giant evil Michael Rooker. If you like hearing Michael Rooker swear, that will go a long way in making this campaign more palatable to you. I'll say that. And he's good at it. He's very good at it. It's just fucking crazy. And I appreciate that on some like twisted level, right? Like, I don't think it's good. That's the conundrum. The Black Ops 7 campaign is not good. Also, I kind of like the Black Ops 7 campaign. Both of these things are true. It's an interesting bad thing. I would not want to play it again. I'm sure that there are intel items that I could go find in those levels, but no thank you. But like, as getting through it once and just like, this is not a you should go buy it because of this, but as someone who was playing it no matter what, I was like, you know what, I'm interested to see what the fuck is happening here. Yeah, like Haze, exactly. Haze tells a better story. At least we can remember our promise to Marino in Haze. So the Black Ops 7 campaign ends, and the four of you are like, the four members of your squad are like, boosh, we did it. Hell yeah, bro. And then like it gets on the radio and it's like, yeah, but you still got weird fear gas in your head. Anyway, this area that you're in is still crazy. Do you want to stay there and do more stuff? And that unlocks a brand new mode called Endgame. They put out a trailer about this, so you may have kind of heard a little bit about this, but it is literally right now. I fully expect this is something they're eventually just going to unlock for everybody once they realize, like, oh, everyone who played the campaign has already played it. We're not going to sucker any more people into playing through that thing just to unlock this mode, so let's just unlock it for everybody. They will count on it. They will almost certainly unlock the campaign for all players, the end game mode rather, for all players, even if they haven't finished the campaign. But right now, you need to finish the campaign to do it. End game is Endgame is an extension of a lot of the same gameplay and systems that you see in the campaign. You still have armor slots like it was Warzone. You still have a loadout that includes these kind of limited use items like the grappling hook, or the crash cart, which is an item that if it's full, when you go down, you can get yourself back up with it, or you can res another player even if they're not close to you, making it the most useful and friendly item in the entire game. And it is an extraction shooter with, as far as I can tell, no PvP in it at all. And so you are dropped into this world, and there are a lot of other players in the world. Not you. You have your same squad, like literally, like the thing that. So I finished the campaign with 2 other players, and then the credits start, and it's like it's fake credits. It shows all the logos of the 39,000 studios that contributed to the development of this game. But then it glitches out and throws like 3 different cutscenes at you, kind of one after another, and you're like, all right, I get it. And then you're just parachuting into a whole new area. This area, now you can pull up a map like it was Warzone mode, like a lot of those sort of systems have up here, but you don't have an inventory. This is not an extraction shooter where you're looting crafting items or things to sell. You're not like, I got this painting. I got this. My backpack has this rare painting in it, and if I can get it out of here, we'll get $1,000 I can use to buy an attachment for my gun. Like, it's none of that shit. It is just, hey, there are a bunch of objectives dotted around this map, and there are 4 distinct zones of difficulty. And as you play and complete objectives, you are gaining combat rating, and that goes from, I think, 0 to 50. If you die, you lose all of that combat rating, and you lose the weapons that you have equipped. But you can use your loadout guns on a new character. Like you can pull your loadout guns in at any time. So like starting from scratch, you're at least starting with something that is like decent. But you do find items of higher rarity and higher damage and stuff, and so there is an act of gearing up that takes place on a new character, or even on a character that is advancing through the game, that where you are getting things that are more powerful than your loadout guns would be. Your combat rating feeds into certain stats and perks. Like every time you level up, it lets you pick one of 2 things. And so it'll be like, do you want to be able to reload guns faster, or do you want to be able to regen armor through enemy kills? So every time you kill an enemy, you might gain a little bit of armor. These enemies are, and part of it is because you're getting more powerful and you need to get more powerful guns. But like the enemies here are also very, very bullet spongy. And so the combat, especially, so the guys I was playing with, the strangers I was playing with after we finished the campaign together, they ran right into like area 2, which you're supposed to be like combat ranking 10 to be in area 2, which we were all 0. Or we were like 4 because we had completed a couple of missions. It doesn't take long to get to 10, but but also we were not like suited for that area. And so like I'm kiting a big enemy, like one of them's like, kill this high value target, and so it's this larger enemy, and I'm just running backwards and shooting it for what felt like a full fucking minute, watching this health bar slowly tick down and just going like, what the fuck am I doing? And so I was like, I'm gonna quit. But as soon as I pull up the thing to quit, it's like, hey, by the way, if you quit, it will count as a full squad wipe and you will lose everything. I'm like, ah, shit. So I followed those two guys around for another 10 or 15 minutes, but then we finally went to an extraction zone where you have to fight a bunch of zombies, or fears, or whatever fucking mind ghosts you're poisoned with in this game. They might as well be zombies. And then you extract. It's interesting for a few reasons. It is very friendly in that it is not a PvP game, and it is not focused on you getting a bunch of shit to craft shit with. Like, you have what feels like relatively powerful or like capable guns almost immediately. The other thing that happens is, because there are a bunch of other players in that zone, you will find players who are not part of your squad, but are also standing around nearby and also kind of working on the same objective. And so you end up in these situations where, like, oh, there's like 8 players here and we're all shooting this one bad guy, or we're all shooting these weird plant pods to disinfect a house from the zombie gas, or whatever the fuck. And that's kind of neat. Like, there's something, it is not as socially emergent as, like, you've seen the stuff from Warzone early on, or the stuff from Arc Raiders, or whatever, where people are like helping each other and communicating, and it is a tense PvP situation where players are just helping each other. Here it's like, well, it's not even really a PvP situation, so we're not talking, we're just running around and we're all kind of shooting guys, and we're, people are just parachuting in, and it's just weird fucking chaos, and you're just kind of getting it done and getting out. It's kind of neat. It's kind of neat. I think it feels like a more fully realized version of the DMZ mode that they did, or like a different twist on that, because again, it's not really about players fighting players, and you're finding really weird weapons, and so it's this kind of relaxed extraction light experience. And I found an exotic gun that is like Borderlands type shit. Like when I'm shooting people with this gun, or shooting zombies with this gun, occasionally it will cause like fireworks, like mortar fireworks, to launch up in the air, and those will all shoot down at nearby enemies. And also, you don't ever have to reload it because all the ammo is just in the mag at all times. And it's like an interesting and fun to use gun in that situation. Again, if you're coming at this going like, I want military reality, and I want realness out of my Call of Duty, like, dude, yeah, the glowing exotic gun that shoots fireworks is not for you. But I was like, hey, this is actually really neat, as like a twist on this concept, as a twist on the extraction thing, as a way to sort of make this thing maybe more palatable in a way that is still familiar to Call of Duty players, but is still, but is also, kind of inching into this risk versus reward extraction thing. It's pretty interesting. There's a final boss in the end game mode that you can go fight, and when you do, like, you unlock a skin per character, and so you could theoretically go play it over and over again, level up all your characters, and go unlock these multiplayer skins by fighting this boss over and over again. I assume you have to be, pretty close. I think the upper limit for your combat rating is 50, so you probably have to run around and do shit for a pretty long time to get there. Or just know what the fight is and come equipped. I think it's like, I saw people saying like, you can finish the game at like level 20 if you have this gun and this launcher, and then you run here and stand here and do this, and so, there's always going to be some weird workaround for people who are looking for it. That stuff's neat, and that's why I think that they will eventually just open the door on it and say, oh, you don't need to finish the campaign to play Endgame anymore, because we realize that Endgame is significantly better than the campaign, and why should you have to slog through that thing? However, slogging through that thing is actually a decent tutorial for what the stuff in Endgame is going to want you to do. So, there kind of is that, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's interesting. Like, it is not the tense, crazy, fuck you over situation that, obviously, Escape from Tarkov and some of the other, even Arc Raiders, it is not that. But it inches in that direction in a few ways that I think give it some stakes. So just run in there and get killed over and over again, which is the antithesis of Call of Duty, if you ask me. But yeah, I don't know. It's the end game mode is better than I thought it was going to be based on some of the trailers and some of the other information that had come out pre-release. Like, I came away from I've only played like 2 sessions of it. But I came away from those 2 sessions going like, that's actually neat. Like, I want to do this again. Whereas like the DMZ mode a few years back, I played a handful of rounds of that and was like, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore unless there's a really good reason to do so. The competitive multiplayer in Call of Duty is like fine. Let's take a quick ad break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the part where you shoot players in Call of Duty. Hey, sometimes you need something a little more than just going to the doctor when things are already bad. Like preventative care, consistent annual checkups with your doctor. If you're making sure that your nutrition's on track and taking care of your mental health, all this stuff. It's not just like, hey, why am I sweating all day? How come I can't move my neck? Like get checked out. I know it's easier said than done, right? You get on the phone with the doctor. It takes forever to make an appointment. And even then it's like, I don't know, come in like 2 months. And by then, like, who knows what's even going to be going on. That's why there's ZocDoc. ZocDoc makes it easy for you to start your health plan by helping you find and book doctors in your area that are right for you. Quick and easy. Remember that doctor's appointment you were supposed to make a while ago? Make it. Book it today. It's easy to find the right doctor right now with ZocDoc. ZocDoc's a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. You can book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. You can filter for doctors that take your insurance, find ones that are located nearby, find a good fit for any medical need you might have, and ones that are highly rated by verified patients. You can also filter based on specific preferences. So if you're looking for someone who speaks a specific language or has availability that fits with your work schedule, or even one that has an opening in the next day or so. That's right. ZocDoc appointments can happen very quickly. You click to instantly book that visit, and appointments made through ZocDoc also happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. More often than not, you can even get same-day appointments. That's crazy. I need to see my doctor. But getting on the phone and doing all that stuff, ZocDoc makes it easier. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/JeffG to instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/JeffG, ZocDoc.com/JeffG. Okay, the competitive multiplayer in Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is weird, man. I like the first, I don't know, first couple hours I was spending with it, just like it was feeling off. It was feeling bad. Like none of it was working out, which is weird because it didn't feel that way in the beta. I eventually kind of spent some more time with it and kind of got a little more comfortable with it. And people have said the auto aim has changed dramatically. It's a weird thing where you're seeing a lot of videos from like quote unquote pro players, and they're just like, man, mouse and keyboard is cooked, bro. Let's go. Alexa, hook me up with the massive L. Like, whatever the fuck. Bullshit. I don't know, like the control stuff felt a little bit different out of the gate, but I kind of just, I don't know, I got used to it, and it seems like I'm kind of off to the races or whatever. But the biggest change is the ability to jump on walls. It's a game with wall running. They don't call it wall running, it's wall jumping, but it's effectively the same thing, just over a shorter distance, because the way the maps use it is sometimes you'll see just a gap in the floor and a wall, and you're supposed to kind of triangle jump over, hit the wall, kind of travel along the wall. Even if your feet aren't running on it, you're still kind of doing the same thing you would do in a wall run, and land on the other side. It's useful for jumping up into windows because you can, usually just like double jump. Oh, you can't just double jump into air, but like you can double jump up a wall. And so you can reach up and immediately climb into those windows and surprise people and go, ha! Which is fun. The mobility is crazy. I've seen some people do some really stupid shit and they think they're being very slick about it. Like, oh, I'm going to, oh, this guy, we you both round the corner at the same time and you start shooting and he just starts flipping off the walls and sliding and doing all this fucking stupid shit. And then you kill him. It's like the equivalent of like the guy that does like a nunchucks thing for like 45 seconds and and then you just shoot him and walk away. But some of that stuff's real silly, like the taking the the Indiana Jones. Yeah, you get your Indiana Jones on a little bit. Except it's a guy like trying to jump off walls and slide and jump off walls again. And like he thinks he's eventually going to turn around and shoot you, but he never quite gets there. And so you're just like kind of looking around going like, fuck you, no, fuck you. And I've won every fight against a player that's tried to do that. But it's been real stupid to watch. So that's been, that's been fun. Yeah. It's like low level Gunsy strats. I don't know. They shuffled the perks up. They put a thing in there where, if you use an item long enough, eventually you unlock specific upgrades for that item. Like, this goes for your field upgrades and your grenades and your scores, your kill streak stuff. Where like you can call in a robot dog to walk around, and if you call in the robot dog enough times and it gets enough kills, eventually it levels up to level 2 and you can equip a level 2 thing on it that makes it more resilient or costs less to call in, or like you can kind of choose one upgrade to go in a slot on that thing. And so like you can make UAVs that are more resilient to rockets, for example. They will automatically fire flares to dodge the first rocket that is shot their way. Stuff like that. They've shuffled up the perks a little bit. It's definitely similar to last year in a lot of ways, where if you pick the same colored perks, there are bonuses that you get for doing so, and they've enhanced that system in ways that are not especially interesting unless you are deep into that game. So I won't waste a bunch of time just like getting into the nitty gritty of it, but they've shuffled things up a little bit again in terms of loadouts. It's not a dramatic change. Some of it's kind of neat, and some of it is kind of just like, okay, yeah, this is a different way to achieve the same goal. Like it's not a massive difference. I've been enjoying it. It's sort of weird. They've gone a weird route with the playlists specifically about getting into a match. The default playlists have, I guess, like they're referred to as open playlists, and they have persistent lobbies, which the upside of that is like getting into another match after the match you just finished would theoretically be faster because you're not matchmaking for an entire new group of players. If players stay, they stay. And so you just keep playing with that same group until people quit and those slots get filled, and it kind of goes from there. That also means that it's not taking skill into consideration as highly as it normally does in those lobbies. And so it is sort of it is a version of the skill-based matchmaking like conversation that has been happening for the last several years. Like this is them experimenting with playlists where they say that skill is, I think the exact verbiage is minimally considered. The upshot of that is that I have been fucking murdering people, and maybe they are having a worse time as a result of that. The reason that skill-based matchmaking makes a lot of sense is that it keeps you playing against people that are of a similar skill level, and so everyone is right around the same level of good, and so you're not just like, you know, jumping in with players who are brand new to the game and murdering them, and they're not going, well, fuck this, why am I even playing this, I quit. Which seems like a good thing to have overall. There is like one traditional playlist that is built the way that they normally build them, but there's literally only one. It's really weird. Yeah, Ezekiel Jeans in the chat says, as a fighting game guy, the idea that people don't want skill-based matchmaking is totally baffling. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with this. And it feels like the people that complain the loudest about skill-based matchmaking are like Call of Duty streamers that just want to make cool clips of them doing 360 no scopes and dropping nukes and all this other shit. And so they want to play with players that are way worse than them. They want to seem like they're the best players in the world. And look at me, I'm so badass. You should sub to me because I got all the gun metas. And I think that's the fucking wackest shit in the world. I think that's the most pathetic thing for a player. Like for that to be their argument, I think is absolutely pathetic. The only thing more pathetic than that is developers of one of the largest games in the world caving to clowns like that. I think it's straight up loser territory, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know. Like I have very mixed feelings on that. I think the nature of like, oh, like the next match starts faster because you're keeping the same players together or whatever. Like there's value there because, man, sometimes it can take a long fucking time to get the next match going. And all of that, but I think having that come at the expense of players who are you know, like worse than, you know, I think that's a terrible way to go. I think that's a terrible way to treat your entire player base. It's the players that are of, you know, low and middle skill that are going to make up the majority of your players. I think, especially for a game as popular as this one, and so to just kind of like treat them like dirt this way, I think it sends a really bad message. And yeah, I don't know. Like I think that part of it is really I don't know. It's just kind of gross. It just seems kind of gross to me to do that. Especially after, you know, like spent years going like, well, you know, we did studies about skill-based matchmaking and proved that like more players play the game if we do it this way, like players have a better time. And sure enough, like every, you know, handful of games, it'll pop up and say like, hey, did you have fun in the last match? Rank this match 1 to 5, which a lot of games do that. I always find that, like, speaking of like looking pathetic or looking like you don't know what you're doing, I think asking for player feedback at the end of an individual match is like really fucking crazy. And it just says to me like you have no idea what you're doing. Every time when games do that. If they do it on a, you know, like on a regular, like, oh, okay, you know, hey, at the end of this season, we're going to post this survey. Like Arc Raiders just put a survey up and they just posted it on their Steam channel and said like, hey man, you know, what do you think? Like, I think that's probably a better way to do it, but to have like an in-game system where you can rank how much fun you had in the last match, that always just says to me, oh shit, we have no idea what we made. We don't know if we're not sure if this is any good or not. Like, whoops. You know what I mean? Like there's a real lack of confidence there, I find. But I don't know. Aesthetically, like it's consistent right now because, you know, like generally, like the skins and whatever, like it's because they haven't launched a store, they haven't launched a bunch of shit for sale yet. There are not a lot of skins for characters or whatever. And so there's just kind of not a lot of stuff in the game. And I'm finding like a lot of the characters, the players in the game to be exceptionally boring. Just like dumb looking people. And they put the characters from the zombies mode in there too, which then thematically, like if you, again, you know, it makes some of the conversations around like realistic skins seem real stupid because you can play as like the robots from the zombie mode in here. And so it's just like a big dumb robot with a glowing chest thing running around, all these other futuristic military dudes. And you know, I think that shit kind of looks stupid. There's like aesthetically, I don't know, man. Like it's supposed to be this like vague future thing and whatever. And I think that stuff works out okay this year. And I think they did some of this last year, but it's definitely like a little more prevalent this year. They have like a player card where you build like, you know, you pick an icon and you pick a little background. And as you play the game, you'll unlock more backgrounds. It's, you know, it's become pretty commonplace across a ton of different games, you know, like you build that player card. That's not a new thing. But they have barely any icons in the game. Like it's like 27, and I think I only have that many because I played the beta. And then the calling cards, I think they look like shit. Now, as people have dug into this more, they've found a bunch that they're able to point at and go, these really, really, really look like they've been generated by AI. Like there's ones that, you know, remember there was that trend where like everyone was making like Studio Ghibli looking fucking pictures of themselves, and it was just like, this looks like shit. Why are you doing this? Like social media was covered in people making, you know, it still is. It's people making garbage images. Like some of those are in the game. Like they've made, you know, they made a bunch of calling cards seemingly with AI. And last year there was some of that too. I think this stuff just looks like shit. Like, you know, if we just step back for a second from the actual conversation around the AI stuff, like they just fucking look bad. Like it's and there's no cohesiveness to it. Like when you think back to, you know, you want to talk about the like, you know, Call of Duty used to look a certain way or used to stand for a certain thing. You go back to some of those calling cards like 20 years ago when it felt like they were all kind of going in the same direction. And then you had stuff like if you do this the right way and kill this guy with a melee attack and do this, you unlock joint ops and you get a weed leaf for your player card. But all of that stuff like seemed coherent in the context of what Call of Duty was. And over the years, that stuff has kind of spun out of control too, because they sell them alongside characters. And so when you buy the Cheech and Chong pack, you get Cheech and Chong calling cards and whatever else. But like, I think that even the stuff at launch, where it's typically like there's something about the Call of Duty aesthetic, and you know, I guess maybe it just speaks to who they think the player base is, and maybe that's a good, maybe they know it better than I do. But it's just like, it's a fucking plane that looks like a pterodactyl. And if you kill 4 guys, you get a calling card. It's got 4 fucking skulls on it. Like, it all just has the vibe of like, look at all these images and you just go, these all look like images that would be really appealing to like off-duty cops / domestic abusers. Like, it's just got like, there's just a certain look into it and you just go like, yeah, look at these sick fucking skulls. Like, it just looks like Loser Town across the fucking board, you know? Like, it just looks like, look at all these images for dipshits. And then and then you've got this batch of them that are like that just kind of look like they fell out of a fucking computer, and they look like shit in a different way than the other ones. The aesthetic conversation, they've been selling, so they sell 2 versions of the battle pass, and they have for I think the last 2 years now, if not more. They sell the regular version of the battle pass, and then you can buy the black cell version of the battle pass. And that comes with additional skins to unlock, along with like 20 tier skips and whatever else, right? The black cell skins have always had this weird, like, here's a version of the character and he's wearing like a fucking chemical outfit because it's like, I don't know, chemicals are bad. And then the black cell version of it is like, it's like that, except it's got a skull and there's black stuff oozing off of it. Look at this gun. It looks like a fucking devil. You're shooting guns out of a demon's fucking face, bro. And it is the stupidest looking shit. It is it is the most Ed Hardy looking fucking trash in the world. And for whatever reason, no matter which game it is, like the Black Cell aesthetic doesn't seem to change from year to year. And maybe it will this year. I don't know. They haven't done a battle pass yet. But like all of it has just been the stupidest looking shit imaginable. So like we're starting from a point where like aesthetically, I think the game is just like rotten. It is just like it is like the most like I try hard. It just looks fucking gross. And then you layer on top of that and go like, and here's some Studio Ghibli guys pointing and look at these wacky goofballs. And you're like, this all looks like shit too. And AI generated, yes, yeah, almost certainly. It looks like, but even if it wasn't, they look like shit. And then you get into the AI generation. Like, look, this is one of, if not the biggest game in the world. This is like sales wise, obviously the discounts a lot of free to play and whatever else, but like Call of Duty is typically, if not number one, it's number two. We'll see about this year. Numbers don't seem like they're adding up so far. The idea that a dev team as large as the Call of Duty team working inside of a company as large as Microsoft, working like the number of humans that already touch this thing, for them to go like, I don't know, man, we had a computer fart this shit out. Cool, right? Like I just like, it's just fucking don't put them in the game. At this point, you should just re-engineer all of the calling card shit to take a lot of it. Like, if you can't be bothered to make them at all, that you just want to have a computer shit them out, and like the quality, you're just like, look at that, fuck it, dude, put it in the game. I don't like the idea that you would sign off that with their human hands, it represents our dev team's human creativity. Humans signed off on this garbage. Like, that doesn't make it any better. When you issue your little PR statements like Ubisoft did with Anno, and like every studio when they use AI stuff, they always have a similar statement that says the game reflects the vision of our human developers, our talented human developers. When you say that, you are throwing your dev team under the bus, because what you're saying is our dev team thought this garbage looked good enough to go in the game. Our dev team looked at this utter bullshit and went, thumbs up, dog. Yeah, ship it. Who cares? Like, it's the worst fucking thing to say. Like, I don't like. It's completely crazy to try to say that sort of stuff about this. That's, the message on Arc Riders was relatively similar. They all say the same thing. Like, if you go read Steam disclosures for games that have an AI disclosure, almost all of them is like, well, during development we use some tools, but the final product reflects the vision and creativity of our human developers. If you care that little about these calling cards to just fart this shit out, just take them out of the game. Don't put calling cards in the game at the same level. Like put fewer in. Only include ones that you sell then. If it's such a loss, like a money loser, to have artists draw these, little rectangles, then fucking retire them. Retire the rectangles and make way fewer of them and have them only come with premium bundles or what, like whatever, man. Like, it's not some key clutch part of the game where you're like, oh, if we don't ship with 200 calling cards, they're going to fucking skewer us. And you're like, oh no, boss, we only got 80 and we only got 2 weeks to ship. What are we going to do? Go. I know, put the computer, tell the computer to shit out a bunch of stuff. It's a guy with a gun and he's running. And it's whimsical, comma, good. Make sure you put comma good at the end of all the prompts. That's how you get the good ones. Like, just fucking don't. Like, no one is dying over, like no one is dying. Like, oh, these calling cards there need to be more. Like, just fucking take a bunch out. If you care that little about them to just fucking generate a bunch of them, just take them out. It doesn't need to be like some big crazy. Just take them out of the game. You reuse maps and gun skins. There's a ton of gun skins that are like, and they even have like room for this. When you go look at a gun skin, it'll say first debuted in Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Like, the franchise is old enough that they're just reusing shit all day long. When you prestige, you can opt to use the prestige icons from the past 12 Call of Duty. You can go like, oh, I want to use the prestige icons from Modern Warfare 1 because that's when it mattered. That's when those icons meant something. And it'll say, first seen in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Just do it with the calling cards too. Who cares? No one's going to fucking care. People will probably be like, oh, cool, this is the weed leaf I used in 2008. 9. You know? It just seems ridiculous to me. Like the argument of just like, oh, we had to, the human side of this is still represented, but we use some of these tools. Just no part of this is like no players are out there demanding like, oh, I can't believe there's not enough of these. Like it's never happened with calling cards. So at this point, just strip them out. Just get them out of the game. If you can't like make them good, take them out. It's easy. Probably easier than having to gin up a bunch of prompts. Like what do you do on that? I assume that at this point that those models have been trained on enough screenshots of video games and Call of Duty games that you could probably just type into it. Make me a bunch of Call of Duty calling cards. It'll just know what that is and go, oh yeah, no problem. I can make those all day long. None of them will be good, but you're asking me, so clearly you don't care if they're good. It's weird, man. I think that's again for a giant team such as this, the number of different studios that touched this, the very idea that they couldn't be bothered to put humans on this task for a game that is, selling for as much as $100 in some configurations. You just go like, what are we doing here? The fuck are we doing here? And then there's the zombies mode, which honestly I don't have too much to say about. It's a round-based zombies mode as it was last year, and I'm never going to be a zombies player. So I played a couple of rounds of zombies last year and had an okay time with it. This looks relatively similar with different levels and so on. And they've got the Dead Ops arcade thing, which is the top-down kind of dual joystick shooter style little mini game thing buried in those menus too. I don't think that's a neat thing they did with their engine, but it's not actually good. And so all of that adds up to, I think, what is it, like a pretty like middling game. There are some interesting conversations to have around it, and I think again some of the end game stuff is fascinating. And so you see little bits and pieces of this where you go like, actually, like directionally, there are things here that you go like, yeah, there could kind of be something to this. Like this is, this, if they go further in this direction and they enhance this, like, the end game mode could be something larger in the future. And it already seems like something neat. We'll see what they do with it. If they add to it every few months, like every season, they add more stuff to end game. I don't know. Like if they have a plan to upgrade that over time, I think there could be something to that. And the competitive multiplayer is fine. I don't know. Like it's fine. But again, my leading piece of advice when it comes to Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is if you intend to go play it for the campaign and you're going to insist on playing that campaign alone, don't do it. It's not worth your time. If you're going to play it that way, don't play it at all. To that end, I would say just leave the fill squad turned on and let it fill with strangers and go play it. Like it's not difficult. It's breezy in spots. It has some kind of neat things in there, but don't approach this expecting like any kind of like traditional campaign. Like don't go in going, I'm gonna insist on playing this alone. Like you will have a terrible time playing it alone. It is built to be played with other players. It is fucking boring. It is like every single encounter takes longer than you want it to. Even with the difficulty seemingly kind of scaling, like there's just aspects to that where it's just like just don't, dude. Just don't. Anyway, that's Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll get into the rest of the news after this. I think the ideal wallet is, one that you never really have to worry about. It's where you want it to be. It's comfortable in your pocket. It's easy to get to the things that are in it. It's not some big blown out floppy soupy mess. Ridge has been in the wallet game for a while, refining the perfect wallet. And now they've got the Ridge 2.0. What's up with the Ridge 2.0, you ask? You're in luck. It's 10% lighter. That's right. They found the perfect balance to keep that wallet feeling good and sturdy and ready for you, and making it a little bit lighter in your pocket. They've made it more modular. They've got improved cash straps, money clips, and AirTag attachments. And they've got improved surface design with tonal logos and matching plated cash straps. So, it looks nicer too. It's made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber. It can hold up to 12 cards plus cash. Comes in over 50 different colors. If you're interested in the sports, they've got sporting teams from the NFL, Major League Baseball, and college sports. It's perfect for holiday gifting, especially because Ridge is having their biggest sale of the year right now. Plus, all Ridge wallets have an industry-leading built-for-life warranty, so even if your wallet is lost or stolen, they've got you covered. And if you're worried about RFID scanners scanning your pants, all Ridge wallets have RFID blocking technology. They've got over 100,000 five-star reviews. Ridge is a gift that people love to receive. And they've got even more. They've got key cases, which is, great if you want to keep all your keys together and less jangly. They've got suitcases. They've got power banks, all built with the same sleek and durable design. You'll find the perfect gift for every wish list at Ridge. For a limited time, Ridge is having their huge Black Friday sale. Head to ridge.com to get up to 47% off your order. This is the biggest discount they've given all year. That's ridge.com for up to 47% off during their biggest sale of the year. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Hey, support the show. Let them know that we sent you. In the news, we've got, the Game Awards announced their list of nominees. That award show is coming up in a little under a month here. Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, has set a new record for nominations at the awards by receiving 12. 12. That's a lot. It's a lot of nominations. I'm not going to read the entire list of nominees here. I'll kind of, I will also remind you that I am a member of the jury, I guess you would call it, for this. I submitted a ballot for nominations for this. I will submit one more ballot to pick winners from this list, and so on and so forth. Game of the Year nominees are Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silk Song, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'll say I'm surprised that Ghost of Yotei did not make its way into the Game of the Year category. It did appear in a number of other categories. And I'm a little. I guess I'm a little surprised by that. I guess I would say, like maybe people saw it as like, oh, it's not that different from Ghost of Tsushima and what have you. But yeah, I don't know. That seems like a weird one. Like, personally, I would take Ghost of Yotei over most of these games, but or let's say a full half of them. But hey, what are you going to do? Ghost of Yotei did show up in the best game direction, as well as best narrative and best art direction, and best score and music and best audio design. Erika Ishii got a nomination for Best Performance. The other thing I'd say about Game of the Year is Indiana Jones was technically eligible here because of the Game Awards don't work on a pure January to December calendar. Like the awards show happens in early December. So if a game comes out kind of late, if it comes out past the deadline, then, you know, it ends up being eligible for the following year. And Indiana Jones was a game that kind of ended up in that kind of weird limbo. The danger you have, and danger, I say danger as if like that's the main concern of a team shipping a game, is what about the Game Award? You know, no. But Indiana Jones, you know, it's the when you ship that late in the year, then, you know, things like that end up happening. And some games are just straight up not made available to judges, you know, in a timely manner. Like that happens as well. Like I don't think anyone, I don't know. I'm curious about when the outlets who get review copies of Call of Duty, I'm interested in knowing when they got them, because it seems like a lot of that stuff maybe came in a little later than normal. But anyway, you know, and some games just don't submit, and that's just how it goes. Let's see here. Best independent game: Absalom, Ball Pit, Blueprints, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Hades 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. Best debut indie game: Blueprints, Clair Obscur, Despelote, Dispatch, and Megabonk. Fighting is a really weird category this year. Like I was reading over the best fighting game nominees. I mean, I was writing what I think what are the best fighting games that came out this year, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a grim. The nominees for best fighting are 2XKO, which initially I thought was not out at all, but it except for in like a closed testing. But when you go to their page, it just says out now for PC. And so I assume anyone can just go play 2XKO if you want to. If you want to, I won't. I played enough 2XKO to know that I don't want to play any more of it anytime soon. But it's early. It's technically, I guess you would call that early access. Capcom Fighting Collection 2, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, which is a weird thing to see because as far as I can tell up here, the category is called Best Fighting. So I don't know why you would put City of the Wolves in that category. Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection and Virtua Fighter 5 Revo World Stage. So really, like the three good games in this category, two of them are compilations, one of which people have had complaints about the online modes and input latency and stuff. So Mortal Kombat is, you know, maybe a little dicey in a couple of ways there, for some folks. And you've got yet another release of Virtua Fighter 5. I mean, if you want to make the argument that, hey, Virtua Fighter 5 has been the fighting game of the year every year since it came out, I'll be like, yeah, I mean, sure, okay. But that is technically a new release of VF5. They added like a single player mode to it, with like you know, little arcade rooms that you go to and fight AI over and over again. It's, I don't know, it's fine. It's a fine mode in an amazing video game. So I don't know. Once Upon a Katamari did not make it for best family, which I find to be disgusting. But what are you gonna do? Best multiplayer is Arc Raiders, Battlefield 6, Elden Ring, Night Rain, Peak, and Split Fiction. Which I think makes sense. I bet Arc Raiders ends up winning that category. But that's kind of the interest, you know, just to kind of talk a little bit more about Call of Duty here. It is an interesting year for Call of Duty to have a very, very off year because it is the most competitive year for multiplayer focused shooting in a very long time, between Battlefield 6 coming out and being generally accepted as being quite good, and Arc Raiders being a thing of, you know, of like a very kind of interesting multiplayer experience. And I bet all of that is kind of chipping into general. And so like, so on top of that, for Call of Duty to be like this fucking weird mess of a game that, like, you know, it's not that bad, but it's very different. And, you know, it's very easy to look at and go like, fuck this. And, you know, some of the early reports on sales, I'll put it to you this way. Normally when Call of Duty comes out, it'll come out like near the end of a week, Thursday, Friday, something like that. Right. And usually after that first weekend, you'll get like a PR, like a press release out of Activision that's like, Call of Duty sets records for and they'll find some new number that, you know, every year they'll come up with, like, whether if it's not sales, then it's time spent. If it's not time spent, then it's matches played, or, you know, like whatever it is, they will tout something about the launch and say, look at how big Call of Duty is. This year we did not get I have not seen any sort of press release like that. I think the closest thing they did is like a Twitter post that says, congratulations to I mean, this is the Call of Duty Twitter account congratulating the developers of Call of Duty, which is already ridiculous. Congratulations to Treyarch, Raven, and all the incredible Black Ops 7 developers, and thank you to Call of Duty fans everywhere. Across opening weekend, we've seen a great response to the quality and depth of gameplay in Black Ops 7. This is only the start. Our teams have an incredible year of content and events lined up, beginning with Season 1 around the corner. We couldn't be more excited for what's to come in Black Ops 7. 0 stats. 0 numbers. Like nothing patting themselves on the back for how like big of a game it is or whatever. Like, so I feel like that's very telling. Like, you know, the early sales numbers are always weird because it's always like physical sales of games out of the UK. Like the earliest sales numbers we see for a game are always that. It's like, how many people bought discs in the United Kingdom? And you're like, yeah, that's something. You can extrapolate something from that. But those numbers sound like they're down. Like I thought I saw like 60%. Like it's some dramatic number, but also it's physical copies of the game. Like there's a lot of, like, why would you buy a physical copy of a game where every single mode in it is online only? Like there's when those servers go down, and you know they've got a good track record of never taking their servers down for older Call of Duty games, or rarely doing so, I guess I should say. It's ridiculous. We'll see what the engagement numbers are when we do engagement charts and stuff. But like SteamDB, looking at Call of Duty, like it has not been bigger than Battlefield. Right now it is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It is number 14 with 68,000 players right now. Meanwhile, Battlefield 6 has 200K and Arc Raiders has 328. So yeah, I don't know. The numbers have not looked great, but also it's a Game Pass game, so the Steam numbers don't tell the full, whatever. With every single number that we have access to about Call of Duty right now, there are always little like, oh, but that doesn't tell the full story because we've got this and we got this and we got that, you know. And so there's kind of weird caveats across the board on all of that stuff. But whatever. Anyway, interesting year for Call of Duty to have like what by almost every account seems to be an off year. And you know, for there to be other strong games out there picking up that slack, I wonder if this will change things going forward. We'll have to kind of see, you know, again, like what the other metrics are. But anyway, the Game Awards will happen in a few weeks here. And yeah, I don't know, like there will be trailers and announcements for new games there. These awards will also theoretically be given out in some capacity during the show. So that'll be coming up pretty soon here. The big news of last week was something that we talked about on the bonus podcast last week because it was something that was happening as that show was taking place. That is the announcement of a bunch of new hardware from Valve. Valve has announced a standalone VR headset called the Steam Frame, which will also tether to a PC wirelessly, much like a Quest does. So you will have the ability to run games natively directly on the device, but it will also, if you need a PC, if you need the power of a full PC to run the game properly or whatever, then you will, you will have a way to do that there as well. It looks like a pretty good headset. It's nice to have an option in this space that is not owned by Facebook. And the controllers and all of that stuff look nice. I should say all of these devices have been announced for early 2026, but we don't know any pricing. I think all we really know is that Valve has said that they're looking to try to make things affordable. That's a word that they've used a few times in discussing these products. And so we'll see what they think affordable means. And so, yes, the Steam Frame will be a VR headset. They're doing some neat tricks there around. They're doing foveated rendering, but for streams. So like eye tracking and foveated rendering, it kind of devotes more, in this case, bit rate with the streams, but it would be pixels, if you're running the games natively on the device. It will use eye tracking to make sure the parts you're looking at are getting more bandwidth than the parts around it, if that makes any sense. Which is like a neat trick. They have also announced a new Steam machine. You may remember the Steam machine from like 10 years ago when they said, "Hey, we're gonna make a computer that you hook up to your television and try to sell this thing." And generally speaking, no one was interested. Now, all these years later, they are back with a new device. And it's a very different situation this time around in terms of, is this something people might want? Is there room for this in the marketplace? Is there, like, I think that what they are doing, what they're talking about with the Steam machine in terms of what they have already done with the Steam Deck, I think this seems like an amazing move. I think this seems like a move whose time has come, and I think it presents a real interesting alternative / problem. Alternative for us, problem if you are the folks at Microsoft, because they are going to, like, Valve wants to sell you a box that runs Linux. And will play a lot of your games. It's very, like, all of this is only interesting because this is following on from the Steam Deck. And if you look at what Valve has been doing with the Steam Deck and with Proton and with Linux compatibility and the ways in which they have been making Windows-based games run on not Windows, they have been doing amazing work. They have been, along with a community of people, there's a lot, there's a lot happening from a lot of different places on this, but like the what Proton has done has given Linux, or just non-Windows OSs in a general sense, like a shot in a way that, like, they haven't ever had before. Like, all the lunatics out there saying, this is the year of Linux on the desktop. This is going to be the year. All the lunatics out there, whenever you post anything on social media about, like, this Windows thing is giving me this alt tab stopped working, and they immediately respond with Linux. Like, no actual, like, help about your issue or any kind of, like, just the word Linux. Like, get fucked, dipshit. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? They have undercut their own efforts time and time again for decades by just being completely fucking insufferable. But again, like Valve's work on the software end to make Steam Big Picture a really pleasant experience to use, and their work on Proton to make make these games run well under Steam OS is amazing. It is amazing work. And it's made the Steam Deck so like a pleasure to use. And so building on that as a device that they can, you know, hook up to a television and so on and so forth, I think is also incredibly exciting. Now we need to, you know, you kind of have to, you need to look at the specs here and you know, you need to look at their idea of like, hey, this thing is meant to be affordable and all of that stuff. Like they are not going out there and making some $2,000 box that is going to be the most powerful PC you've ever owned, and also it runs under a PC. You know, like you look at this stuff and go like, okay, like this is within striking distance of a PlayStation 5, but it's probably under it in a couple of ways, and we'll see what they do with FSR to get it where it needs to be in 4K and this and that. Like there are discussions to be had around that, you know? Some people were immediately grumbling about like, I can't believe it's only got 8 gigs of VRAM. You're like, oh, you know, for the games that people tend to run on Steam, for the, you know, for the sorts of thing, like that's going to be probably plenty for a great deal of games. They're billing it as being, you know, their shorthand version of it is it's 6 times as powerful as a Steam Deck. And a Steam Deck is pretty capable of running a lot of modern games. When you get to the top end, you run into one of two scenarios with the Steam Deck. You either run into like, okay, this game is not, you know, this poorly optimized Unreal Engine 5 game that runs like shit everywhere really runs bad on a Steam Deck to the point where it's unplayable. Or you run into, hey, this is a multiplayer game and the anti-cheat solution that they have cooked up is not something that runs under Linux. And so, you know, it's not compatible at all. And so, you know, you will end up in a couple of situations where you go like, actually, the Steam machine is not a good solution for, let's say, Battlefield 6, which is one of the most popular games on Steam right now. Battlefield 6 does not run on these devices. And so you want to believe that that's something that Valve can tackle over time and that they'll eventually get there, and, you know, or whatever. But like right now, you know, right now, this is not a solution for that particular game. I think, you know, this is interesting because I think people have tried to, you know, like people are letting their imaginations run wild with this stuff. And it's exciting. Like it is very exciting stuff. And I feel like I'm kind of trying to temper that a little bit because, you know, at the end of the day, the power kind of is what it is, and the anti-cheat scenario is what it is. But you have a lot of people that are just like, this is going to revolutionize the console marketplace, and this is going to change everything. And like, hey, you know, sure. Like I think there's a real possibility of that, but also it's incredibly likely that Valve is just going to sell these themselves and not put them in stores and not try to make them a big mainstream product and try to, you know, like this seems like something that they are going to target and sell to people who already have Steam accounts. And whatever happens after that, if people see one in someone else's house and go, dude, this thing is sick, and they decide to get one, even if they don't have, like I'm sure that will happen. But I kind of look at it and go like, you know, like this is probably something that, you know, like will be, and the engineers said it themselves that when they were looking at like, hey, what kind of specs do we want this thing to have? They looked at the Steam hardware survey and they said, okay, well, you know, like this spec that they're at right now is actually a step up for most of the players on Steam. This is technically an upgrade for a lot of those players. And we'll see how much it costs, you know, like what if this thing was $400? I think, you know, you've had some people predicting that on the low end. And that seems too low for me. I would guess somewhere in the $600 to $700 range. They're going to offer 2 versions. One will have 512 gigs of storage. One will have 2 terabytes. But also we'll see what the pricing ends up being, because like, I don't know, RAM is like $1 trillion right now. Have you seen RAM prices lately? Holy shit. I hadn't looked in a while because I'm not in the market for RAM, and I heard people talking about RAM prices and went and looked, like, oh my God, what the hell happened? So that's something that everyone making a console right now, is everyone making any device period, is going to have to fucking deal with that. And we'll see where all of that nets out. You know, like this is a really neat device. Again, as someone who has been a big fan of the Steam Deck, to see this concept brought to televisions in a real, like I've been sitting there going like, oh, maybe I should put, you know, I got this PC that I use to, you know, sometimes stream from or whatever. Like maybe I should throw Bazite on that and really just start fucking around with, you know, Steam OS on a television. And I was like, oh, but I have NVIDIA stuff. I don't know how well, like I know the NVIDIA stuff has come a long way there, but also ultimately, like I use that PC to stream a lot of games that would also have anti-cheat that would not run on Linux. And so ultimately, like it does not solve that problem. But I do think that this is a really fucking awesome, like I'm really excited about it. Again, as someone who's been a fan of a Steam Deck, like this is a really exciting thing. Since it is just a computer, you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. Presumably you could install Windows on this if you really wanted to, and then you would solve the anti-cheat problem. But I don't know, that's kind of weird. But like in terms of like, hey, here's a device that you could do all of this gaming on, and much like a Steam Deck, like the Steam Deck has been a great machine for running emulators and stuff like that. And having all of that stuff on a television through a 6-inch cube sounds really fucking awesome. And that's pretty exciting too. So to have like, you know, a thing that is open, and this is a lot of this is some of the positives we talked about with regard to whatever the future of Xbox is, right? As they talk about like, oh, we're going to make a more open platform, and we're going to do this, you know, like that's been the exciting thing about, you know, wherever Microsoft is going to, is like, oh, this will just be a computer. Like I can install Steam on this and just do that instead of the Xbox app or whatever. Or I can install whatever fucking weird shit on it I want. Let's install DOSBox on this and just play whatever all the time. So yeah, I think that all of those things add up to a great deal of freedom, and I think that stuff is really exciting. And this stuff will come early 2026. So that's going to be ahead of whatever Microsoft is doing in the hardware space. And yeah, I think that, you know, this stuff feels like the things that are going to revolutionize. And if it's not the Steam machine, and if it's not the Xbox, you know, like you know, we're all kind of pushing in the same direction on this stuff. I think this is going to be the stuff that will eventually revolutionize the console space by making it a little more open-ended and what have you. And finally just making it easier to have an open machine that you plug into your television. You know, Windows 11 is significantly better on a TV than Windows 10 was. Like they've come a very long way on making that process work more easily and being able to just like manage it more effectively. Ultimately, it's an interface problem, right? Like you still need to have a mouse and keyboard hooked up to this thing. And everyone, you know, like there are a zillion different companies selling different wireless keyboards. Like I saw one that was like a tiny, tiny, tiny little keyboard. I was like, actually, that one might be cool to have. But the number of wireless keyboards I've had in between couch cushions because it's a thing that's hooked up to a television, like all of that stuff sucks. You know, interfaces, you know, like you're running Windows on a 4K screen. And so there's a lot you need to do to make text readable in terms of making the text bigger. And so Windows font scaling has improved, and interface scaling and a lot of that stuff has gotten better over time too. And so, you know, like generally speaking, you can hook a Windows machine up to a TV and it like quote unquote works. But the controller interface, the interface part of it is where all of it falls apart. SteamOS, Steam Big Picture, is a really fantastic solution to most of those problems. The trackpads they put on the Steam Deck that can act as a mouse are really effective. The pop-up on-screen keyboard is very easy to use in that environment as well. And so they've kind of addressed most of the interface problems you would run into on a handheld. To do that on the Steam machine, they're also going to be selling a controller that basically takes all the controls that are on a Steam Deck and puts them in a controller. So it's, your standard Xbox style layout of face buttons and triggers. It also has some back buttons, and it also has a Steam button and a secondary button that'll pull out kind of the right side menu on a Steam Deck. If you're familiar, that button will be there as well. And it will also have the mouse trackpads. And that seems like a great solution. That seems like an awesome controller to have, potentially, regardless of whether you're using one of these machines or not. They are going to sell them separately if you're interested. And yeah, that could really solve some problems in a lot of different weird scenarios if that controller is really great. And yeah. It's a lot. I don't know. Like the VR headset is interesting, and it's cool. Again, it's cool to have an option in that space that is not, that is not owned by Facebook. To have some kind of more competition in that setup, I think is nice to have. But the Steam machine, I think, is the thing that feels like it really matters. And I'm really excited about it. Like I want to fuck around with one real bad. There a couple of people had some hands on with the device. Digital Foundry actually has a really good lengthy breakdown of all of these devices. And they ran Cyberpunk on the Steam machine with and fucked around with the settings to see what the frame rates would be like. And so there's a little bit of that sort of information out there, but not like extensive testing just yet. And so, yeah, this is, again, it's not going to be the most powerful thing in the world or whatever, but like, it'll be pretty capable of running a great deal of games, and that'll be very neat to see. And, I can't wait for these things to come along. What else is going on in the news here? Xbox is going to have a partner preview event later this week. They've pre-announced some of the games that will be there. They've said 007 First Light will be there. They will have Tides of Annihilation, Reanimal, and, quote, other great games heading to Xbox consoles, Xbox on PC, and Xbox Game Pass. That's the triple X. That's the Vin Diesel of video gaming right there. Xbox consoles, Xbox on PC, and Xbox Game Pass. What more could you want? I believe they have also said there will be world premieres, and that all of the games featured will be part of Xbox Play Anywhere. So you could theoretically buy it in one place and play it in another. Yeah, that's going to happen Thursday morning. So we'll see if they have anything kind of else to say. That doesn't sound like a hardware announcement. That sounds like they'll have some updates on some third-party games. Not entirely unlike the Sony event that just happened, which was, mostly third-party focused. Mason in the chat says, I don't expect much from this, especially near the Game Awards. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, are these games that could not afford a slot on the Game Awards, and so Microsoft is going to be showing them here? Like, maybe. Custom servers. It's a hot topic. Fan-created private servers for dead games. Someone sat down and decided to make a private server for Conquered, the Sony published shooter that was live for about 45 minutes. before they shut it off and refunded everybody's money. No, it wasn't 45 minutes. It was like 9 days, right? It was like just under 2 weeks or something. This was a hero shooter. If you don't remember, Conquered was a hero shooter that so the characters kind of had abilities, and it reminded me of that hobby grade shooter that Gearbox made, but not a MOBA. The way that whatever the fuck that game, Battleborn. It reminded me of Battleborn. I thought it was a pretty bad game. I thought the level layout was real terrible in Conquered. That was one of the bigger problems with it. It was just like this, like you would encounter maps where it was just like, here's a big, largely featureless box in the middle of this level. Are you going to run around it from the left or the right? The choice is yours. There was just a lot of like uninspired level design. Like they had cooked up all of this lore and like, oh, these freelance characters, they're on a spaceship and they're going from place to place and doing jobs, and it kind of looks, like, people tried to compare it to like Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit, because the initial trailers had these kind of wisecracking, quippy characters. They had this idea where they're like, it's not a live service game, but also we're going to release fun new cutscenes every week that introduce you to the fun characters. And I think they got to show about 2 of them before the game got shut down. And none of that made the game fun or interesting to play. At the end of the day, it was like a pretty underwhelming team shooter. The abilities felt like they were kind of all over the place and not, just not that interesting to use. For me, it was the level design. I think that was the biggest turnoff, was just like overall as far as like maps to use in a shooter, you're like, these are bad. These are not, this is not a good time. And no one bought it. They ran a beta that no one played. That, just like interest in the game going into its launch was very low. And then they launched it and no one cared, and it shut down immediately, which is like a dire, like the millions of dollars that must have gone into this game pre-release is ridiculous. This game came out in August of 2024. People have cooked up fan-made, like, some folks out there have reverse engineered the game enough to actually play a full match of it on a private server, which is cool. Again, I don't think the game is especially worth playing, but it's kind of awesome that someone went to all the weird lengths to make it work. However, they posted a couple of videos and they said like, hey, yeah, this is something that's in the works, and they haven't released their stuff, so you can't go do this. However, it appears that the videos have been pulled down due to DMCA, due to a DMCA request. These requests came from a company called MarkScan Enforcement, which is a pretty well-known firm that companies use to police their IPs and what have you. This is Sony has used MarkScan before, so there's always some question when this happens. Like, are these legit from the people who really own the copyright on this stuff, or is this just some dipshit out there pulling the videos down for funsies because you can, because YouTube is such a terrible place for that, for everything. But yeah, MarkScan issued these, so they're probably legitimately from Sony. Sometimes these fan custom server things just fly under the radar and nothing ever happens, right? Sometimes we see these fan projects, and there's no real enforcement on the companies. Like they just kind of exist, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Or like Lawbreakers, like there are people working on custom servers for Lawbreakers of all things. I think I saw one Clifford B out there even like retweeting stuff about that when it originally happened. But yeah, sometimes that stuff just exists, and that's that. But Sony has decided, no, this is stuff that we don't want to have happen. I'm trying to think about why. Now, it's easy to just fall into the trap of like, well, you got to protect your copyrights. If you're not protecting your copyrights, then what are you doing? And there's a lot of stuff around that. But like, I also think that like there's a certain, like, Sony doesn't want to have a conversation about Conquered You know, they don't want you to remember that ever happened. They just want to like move on and go like, all right. So to see that game pop back up in the news cycle, I'm sure they're just like, fuck, shit, fuck, shut it down. You would like to think that, you know, the people that are working on this are still working on it in secret, and that eventually it will just be dumped out there publicly, and they'll go, ha ha ha, too late. But you never know with stuff like this. But it's cool that this stuff happens. You almost wonder sometimes when games get shut down, and then the studios that made them also kind of get shut down in the process. You wonder if anyone on the team that worked on the game is kind of like whispering secrets into someone's ear and being like, no, actually, you need to set the tick rate needs to be this. And if they have a little help from someone who was formerly on the inside or something. I don't know anything about this specific thing here, but you know, maybe also it's technology that Sony is using in other games, and they don't want people to reverse engineer that stuff because it will lead to horrible cheat issues in game. Like, who knows, right? All we know is that this was said to have been worked on, and that's kind of interesting. But also, like, you know, I don't think you need to go back and play Conquered. I don't like it's interesting as a curiosity, but I don't know that you would ever. I don't know that if people were going to get into it, they would have gotten into it when it was a live game that people could actually buy and play. It's not something that's gonna. It's not something that's gonna like set the world on fire. But still, awesome that someone would jump through the hoops to do that. Speaking of Sony, they have announced their Black Friday details. They're gonna knock $100 off of most PlayStation 5s. Basically, so like the PS5 Pro will be at this starts, when does this start? November 21st, and will last for the rest of the month. So it'll start this Friday and last until December 1st. And so they're dropping $100 off. This means a PS5 Pro will be $650 instead of $750. It means a digital PS5 will be $400 instead of $500. And a standard version with a drive will be $450 instead of $550. I don't think those prices. I think that's still higher than the launch price, isn't it? Is like still. I mean, it's a deal on the current price, but it's also that's the price that they just raised. I've got a baby wearing sunglasses looking at me through the window. Hello. What are you doing out there? Oh, really? Did you go shopping? See you later. There will also be Fortnite bundles that'll be wrapped up in this, and it'll come with Fortnite stuff. F-Bucks, I think they're called. The PlayStation VR 2 will also get $100 off. The PlayStation Portal will go down $20. You know, like headsets and controllers and stuff like that will be dropping $20 or $30. This is stuff that's all going to happen on their site, the PlayStation Direct site, but also participating retailers will probably participate. So there has been a better time to buy a PlayStation 5, but it's hard to imagine a better time to buy a PlayStation 5 anytime soon, if you're price-wise anyway. I don't know. We'll see what the other deals look like going forward. Speaking of like old-ass games getting revived or reverse engineered or other just kind of weird shit, Final Fantasy XI, everyone's favorite massively multiplayer online role-playing game, is still up and running. Did you know that they were using PlayStation 2 dev kits to update that game? This has just changed. They have the folks over at thegamer.com, where the gamers go to the know, I guess. They broke down a lengthy video from the folks at Square who are developing Final Fantasy XI. This is like a 2.5 hour video kind of going over where the game is at and where it's going and all of that stuff. They included some information in there that like that basically they are retiring, like they're moving on from the PS2. That's right. The PlayStation 2 dev kits are no longer going to be used for development. It says here, the team is now working with toolkits like Maya and Blender in order to craft brand new gear and character models. Final Fantasy XI, you know, in addition to just being kind of a crazy thing that that is still up and running, I don't think you can play it on a PlayStation 2 anymore officially. That is another game that has private servers, though. If you wanted to jump through some hoops, you probably could. But the official servers for it, I think the PS2 official servers have been down for a while, but it is still running on other platforms. But this is the PC at this point. But they reached a weird point where basically, because of the development environment they were in, they were not able to add things to the game without potentially removing something else. So they've been doing this weird shuffle for kind of a long time now to put anything into that game. And so in a weird way, updating the development environment, they've now set the stage for a potentially very bright future for Final Fantasy XI, which is awesome. I tried Final Fantasy XI when it first came out, or even before it came out, I think was really when I first started playing it. But I don't know. I was just not the right person for that type of game at that time. You know, World of Warcraft did what I needed an MMO to do by and large, and I just wasn't in the hunt for much else, one way or the other. And so Final Fantasy XI just kind of never did anything for me. But I think about it a lot. And it's so exciting that it is still up and running. And it's still exciting that like they are like that they've refreshed, like they've set the stage for like brand new, exciting, ongoing development of that game. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. So I don't know. If you're a Final Fantasy XI player, you're probably pretty stoked. Also, if you're a Final Fantasy XI player, you should probably get a colonoscopy. You probably do. Ubisoft has halted trading of its stock. This happened, this was a while, according to videogameschronicle.com, your home for the news. This happened last Thursday. They basically, they have not explained why very much. They just kind of said, they sent out an internal email saying that halt in trading is to avoid unnecessary speculation and market volatility during the delay. They've also delayed their quarterly earnings. The internal email says, hello, everyone. I wanted to let you know we're taking extra time to finalize the closing of the semester, and as a result, we will publish our first half earnings results in the coming days instead of tonight. Due to legal regulations, we can't share more information with you at this time. To limit unnecessary speculation and market volatility during this short delay, we've asked Euronext to suspend the trading of our stock until the results are announced. So, you know, this is something that, like, if a company, and it doesn't guarantee this, but this is the sort of thing that, like, when these numbers kind of get suspended and stuff, like, sometimes that's because there is a major change happening, like an acquisition or, you know, a massive reorganization of the business. That, you know, is someone buying Ubisoft and they just need to finalize it before they announce anything? Like, that's on the table. Like, we'll see. You know, Ubisoft has been in a weird spot. They did just spin out like some of those, you know, like they just started that kind of other venture with like Tencent, where like Assassin's Creed and some of the other IPs were spun out into their kind of own joint venture. And so they've been reorganizing for a little bit here. I don't know. Is Tencent buying the rest of it? Is the rest of it getting shut down because they're only going to focus on the stuff that they spun out? Or is someone coming in and buying the whole thing? Who would that be? Would it just be the Saudis again? Who knows? But but Tencent does already have kind of a foothold into that thing. So maybe they want the rest of it. I don't know. That seems like a weird. I don't know. It's Tencent is such a weird / bad company in so many different ways. I don't know, but yeah, we'll kind of see what happens there. They have not. I think the trading is still halted. So I'm looking to see if anything ever got lifted there. But no, it's kind of been a little bit here that they've tried to halt trading. So. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. There's probably anyway. That's probably a good a sign as any, as there's probably some imminent changes happening with Ubisoft's ownership. We'll see. And that's going to do it for the news. Yeah, there was that Krafton CEO. God, Sigma Factor says, speaking of bad companies, how about that Krafton CEO? Yeah, it was asserted in court. So, like, if you don't remember, Subnautica 2 has been kind of a clusterfuck in development, and that kind of spilled over publicly with some pretty snippy comments out of Krafton, the owner of the franchise now, and the folks that had worked on Subnautica previously, and they went back and forth with like, oh well, this Subnautica guy spent more time making his movie than working on the game, and then this and that. It was asserted in court that like the head of Krafton, which recently has said that they are going to be an AI first company, whatever that means, and they're offering voluntary buyouts and layoffs and stuff for employees who are not down with that. But apparently the some of the documents are asserting that the CEO of Krafton asked ChatGPT, "Hey, how do I fire these guys without having to pay them their bonuses?" Which is that's a very AI first thing to do, I suppose. So, what are you gonna do? Let's get into the emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. And we'll see what you have to say about things. Ben in Boston asks, for movies, studios and agents will sometimes mount a "for your consideration" campaign to try and raise critical awareness of their films and clients around awards season. Does this happen with games, in particular for the Game Awards, now that it seems like the highest profile award show? And if so, what does this look like on your end? Yes, so there are rules in place. The Game Awards puts rules in place about what publishers are and are not allowed to do when it comes to courting, when it comes to this sort of stuff. And so, yes, there will be emails. Like the thing that happens with the Game Awards is that, generally it's like you get access to a lot of games. If there are games that came out earlier in the year that you don't have for whatever reason, it's a good opportunity to get them. And yeah, but like you will get an email that says, like a publisher will be like, "Hey, these are the 5 games we published here, and if you need any of those, let us know." Or they will send an email saying, "We would love for you to consider this game for these categories," which is basically how that stuff works for movies and whatever. It's like, this would be a great thing for best supporting actress, or this would be a best thing for best debut indie, or so yeah, you will get a lot of emails from PR teams and stuff, but there are rules about how often they are allowed to contact you. They cannot send you things, they cannot bribe you. There are rules in place to prevent that sort of shit from happening. The Game Awards has put that stuff in place to prevent that sort of thing. And so it's really just focused on like, hey, here are the games that, came out this year from our publisher or developer, whatever it is, whoever is contacting you. And, we think Battlefield 6 would be a great choice for Game of the Year or Best Audio or, or whatever. And so it is, yeah. Anthrax B says, it seems like such a broken system. So many people shouldn't be voting for genres they don't play or care about. So you always have an opportunity to not nominate in a category. Like the Game Awards has thought of that as well. Like there's very much a, like, so, you know, there are different versions of the ballot that some people will get that some people don't. Like, for example, I don't get a ballot that asks me to say who are the best esports teams of the year, you know, because I don't fucking know. Like, what's the fucking best esport? Like, oh, how the fuck should I know? So I don't vote on that in the nomination phase or anything like that. And so you can always leave, like, I will tell you, without getting into any like super detail, there were categories on the ballot this year that I did not fill any entries into because I did not feel either one of two things. I did not feel that there were enough games in that category that were good, or I was just not up to speed on the particular category. So like, you know, like there are always opportunities for that. You are not obligated to sit there and just blindly fill out a form with games you know nothing about. Like the Game Awards is totally fine with judges that are just like, okay, I'm going to vote on what I know and not do that. So like it's like they account for that sort of stuff, I think, as much as they can. And yeah, but yeah, you'll get some emails. Like that's the sort of thing, the for your consideration thing. And that's existed before the Game Awards. You know, you will get end of year emails that say like, you know, and it'll be one of two things with your end of year emails. You will get ones that say, hey, for awards consideration, do you need, you know, like, hey, these are the games we published these year. We'd love for you to consider them. Or you will get ones that say, do you have any holiday gift guides planned? Because if so, we would love to, you know, make you aware of this game that came out so you could include it in your year-end holiday giving guide feature or whatever. You know, like those are the two sorts of like end of year emails you tend to get from publishers and PR folks working for indie studios and what have you. Yeah, that's been like that for as long as I can remember. But the Game Awards specifically, like they put rules in place to prevent Game Awards judges from being, you know, given unnecessary perks and weird stuff. So they have put some things in place to try to keep that on the up and up. JR in Longmont, Colorado writes in and asks about a whip. No, it says, with the expectation that the next Xbox will run a more fully featured Windows, what do you think the chances are that Microsoft will backport this Windows experience to the Series X or S? I could see it as a paid upgrade. Hell, they could even do it for Xbox Ones and turn those into cheap game workstations, but I doubt they'd put in the effort at this point. No, I don't think they'll do any of that. I don't think that's like, I suppose it's possible that they could engineer some kind of solution that runs on current Xbox hardware for that. I don't think the desire is there. I don't think the need is there, both from like the bulk of players that own those consoles, and also like Microsoft themselves. Like, why, you know, like they're going to move forward. They're going to go like, hey, this is the new way, and it starts here. It would be cool, yeah, if you could crack open an Xbox all the way and just throw Windows on it or something once you're done using it as a regular Xbox or something. That might be kind of neat, but seems unlikely. MC writes in and says, in the past, you've been hesitant to suggest the Steam Deck to those more technologically casual in the console crowd because it's still a PC and things can still break in the way that PCs and PC games sometimes do. Getting into settings, incompatibilities, and troubleshooting, be they on the OS side or in the games, can be confusing, frustrating, and difficult to get working on the occasion something happens. Has SteamOS and Proton progressed enough that the PC nature of the Steam Deck and Steam Machine should no longer be a sticking point for people looking for a plug-and-play console solution that just works? Would you recommend a Steam Machine for people coming from the console side looking for a replacement, or because of its potential complexity, would this still mostly be for PC users looking to simplify their living room setup? It's a good question. And I think that like the answer right now will hopefully change. But, you know, you encounter things from like Steam Deck players where they're like, oh man, my Steam Deck just stopped. I saw someone, I forget who it was. Was it Orahack? It was somebody was saying like, oh, my Steam Deck just basically like I had to roll back the OS because whatever the latest update bricked it. And so I had to go into the BIOS and flash it back to the older version, which is not that hard to do if you know, have used a computer before. It's actually fairly easy by computer standards, how easy it is to roll a Steam Deck back. I've done it multiple times, going from like, you know, preview versions of the OS back to the standard version and whatever. But like, but it's more than you would ever have to do on a console. So like there are still those situations, but I think the larger thing, and I hope that we get there, the thing I would love to see when it comes to consoleizing the experience and getting things to where they need to be is a boilerplate way to automatically set a game to the right settings for that device and just say, we did it for you. It runs good. And maybe like a console game, you present a couple of options like prefer resolution versus prefer frame rate. And then under that, you have advanced settings, which gives you all of the you know, kind of standard settings for people who really want to dig in and actually fuck around with it. Someone in the chat says consoleizing PC gaming is just insulting to PC gaming. PC gaming is not a thing that can be insulted. PC gaming is just console gaming on a different device. Like they're all the same games now. You realize that, right? Like Age of fucking Empires came out on consoles. There's just one business now. It's not, there's no, like I feel like you're writing something from 1999 or something. Like that's completely ridiculous. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. But yeah, I think like the nice thing that would be to see would be on the software side of things, like just fucking make that shit easier for the players that are not used to dealing with those sorts of settings. Because sometimes you know, I've experienced this both on the ROG Xbox Ally Xbox X and on a Steam Deck occasionally, where you launch a game and it doesn't run the way you think it should, or the settings are wrong. On the ROG, on the Xbox, I ran into a situation with Keeper where I was playing Keeper on the PC with everything turned all the way up, and when I would launch it on the Xbox Ally Xbox X, it's kept all those settings. And so I'd go, oh shit, and I have to turn it, like it would run it like 2 frames a second. It was terrible. Ran awfully. And so I'd have to go in there and adjust everything and turn it all down to medium and low. And, you know, like eventually, like even with all those settings turned down, I don't feel like it was a great way to play the game, but it was much more playable. But then when I went back to the PC, the desktop, all the settings carried over again. And so the desktop was suddenly set to low. And so I had to turn them all the way back up, which then fucks it up again if I'm on the handle. Like that can't happen. Straight up. That needs to not happen. On the Steam Deck, they've been pretty good about keeping that stuff separated, and you've got to keep them separated. Because the Steam Deck, obviously you're going to want very different settings there than you do on a desktop. If you're playing these games in multiple places, the game settings themselves need to not carry over. And that stuff has been a little hit or miss in some cases, even in the earlier days of Steam Deck, but that stuff's gotten a lot better. But it's not better in cases where I'm playing Steam games on the ROG X Ally Xbox X. If I'm running Steam on that thing, then it doesn't know that that's a portable per se, because Steam only cares about Steam devices. They're like, what the fuck is this? I don't know. And so it's going to try and run Steam games like a computer. And so there's settings to be done there. And so like a lot of this stuff just needs to be better overall. And Steam is creating its own ecosystem for that stuff. Like they've got the Steam Deck Verified program. They're going to expand that. They've already expanded that to partner devices that are technically running, like, you know, they've put out these other kind of Steam Deck-like devices. Asus did that, right? They did one of those, if I remember right. And And also then the Steam machine they will expand that program for the Steam machine. But they also, that would be great to have something that just, they could look at a PC and know that stuff as well. That would be kind of cool. And so all of that needs to come a long way. Call of Duty this year, I tried playing that on the X-ROG Asus Ally Xbox X, and running that from the Xbox store, not the Steam version of the game, because I know the Steam version wouldn't know to change. But the Xbox version detects where it is running, and it automatically turns on things like larger text, and it has settings that are largely set to low, low or medium, to get that version of the game running like quite well, like frame rate wise and image quality for the size of the screen and everything. Like this year's Call of Duty runs pretty well on that device. That gets into the larger conversation of like, I don't want to play that game on a screen that small because I'm getting headshots on things that are far away, and like it's just not easy to light up headshots on the screen that small. But you can do it, and it automatically configures the game to run appropriately in that environment, which I thought was kind of cool. And so that's a case where, yeah, it does seem like they're keeping per device profiles. So it's a thing that Microsoft does support, but it still seems like it's relatively nascent. And so, the games that support that sort of automatic setting or whatever, seems like it's relatively low at this time. So that's stuff that needs to get better. But I would like to see the games kind of meet that environment halfway by kind of reducing the number of settings that they show to people that are in this kind of console-like environment. Because I do think that when you start letting a lot more people in the door that have never, like, they're just like, what the fuck is anisotropic? I can't even pronounce anisotropic, let alone know what the fuck it means. What the fuck? 8X? What do I want? 8X or 4X? What the fuck is this shit? Like, people will eventually learn it, but they also maybe shouldn't have to if they don't want to. And so I think there's I think there's a vital opportunity, I would say, to solve that shit and get it out of everyone's face. The question of just like, do I have VSync on or off? Like, it's like, well, actually what you want to do is you want to cap the frame rate at a few frames below your monitor's refresh rate so that it always stays in the variable refresh rate range. And you need to do this, and you turn VSync on, you do this. People shouldn't have to do that. And if they want to actually consoleize this experience in ways that will be meaningful for some people, it's going to be more than just the device. It's going to be the games themselves are going to have to put that stuff a layer deeper when running on those devices. If I'm running on a straight up desktop, hit me in the face with all that shit. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to turn everything up to ultra and cackle as it still runs above 60 frames per second. Because I spent money specifically to do that. But again, these devices are not going to be capable of that sort of behavior. And so just pick something that looks good and runs well. And if I want to make some minor adjustments to that because I care one way or the other about a thing, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't kill anybody to make that easier too. I think that's pretty easy shit. But also incredibly vital shit when it comes to the larger play here. And again, Steam Machine, they're not going to, and maybe they will someday and whatever, but it doesn't seem like the Steam Machine is going to be something that they're going to be taking into Walmart and being like, yeah, man, it doesn't seem like something that they're going to go like, look at our console launch. Look at this. Like, we've got, like, go get this. And here's our launch games. Half-Life 3 is a side-scrolling platformer. That is launching alongside the Steam Machine, and go play it, run and jump, get the fucking coins. I don't know, hit the coins with your crowbar, whatever you're doing. It doesn't seem like that's the device that they're making, and that's the device they're trying to sell right now. Maybe they would eventually, like if the Steam Machine does well, and Microsoft getting into this space, I think furthers that narrative, that whole concept of like, it's just a fucking PC, dude, do whatever. Like, everyone starts moving in the same direction on that stuff. Or if enough players, not everyone, Sony's not going to, like, change their ways overnight on that stuff either. But, you know, like if everyone starts to sort of head in that direction, then I think that eventually behooves developers to be smarter about how they present their settings and all that stuff too. So it's just my actual answer to the question, which is, you know, is this something that you'd recommend to a console owner right now? My answer to that is like, not really, but it's hard to say right now because there's a sort of a chicken and egg thing with like, this thing needs to be out and developers need to care about it, and they need to sell enough for more developers to care more about it. And they need to, you know, like there are several chickens and several eggs that need to be lined up in the appropriate order, I think, before we can really start to have that conversation. But it's exciting. Like, you know, we're in some ways it's closer than it's ever been, and you see it as something that can work for a much larger group of people than it did 10 years ago, you know? And so I think that's pretty exciting. Joe from Michigan writes and says, the announcement of this new Steam machine has me thinking about the Phantom again. There's a downside to every new announcement, isn't there? This is the downside to this one, is that people are sitting around and thinking about the Phantom. Company drama aside, I thought the concept of a console-like PC that only did direct downloads sounded potentially cool at the time, if they could even manage to pull it off with early 2000s era content delivery networks and infrastructure. Do you remember what you or others in the industry thought of it at the time? Was there any sense that it could even be a viable product in the console market, or did people write it off as likely vaporware pretty quickly? I don't remember anyone serious taking it seriously, if that makes any sense. I feel like a lot of the conversation around it out of the gate, before it was like truly vaporware, but a lot of the conversation out of the gate around it was just like, yeah, this isn't, like, none of this is going to work the way they think it's going to, and they're selling this insane keyboard mouse, you know, like they hadn't solved any of the interface stuff other than just like, what if we made a keyboard that was comfortable to put on your lap? Like, that was as far as they got. It wasn't like, here's an interface for launching games that's going to actually solve this problem. You know, there was just a ton of stuff along the way that you just look at and go like, this is stupid. This is absolutely stupid. And so like, even though they had that Jaguar mech game, they had like the, you know, whatever Iron Soldier, they had like some version of that running on Phantom, if I remember right. And I remember there was that Nuon. That bounced to Phantom and then Nuon, whatever it was. But I took an appointment to see the Phantom at one point. At one of them, they were not showing on the show floor at E3. They were at a bad hotel up the street. Not even a good hotel up the street. But they had taken out a meeting room and they were taking appointments. And I remember going and seeing it. And it was just like, you don't really have any, like, the story wasn't there. Like, it just didn't seem like a coherent thought. It was just like, look at this thing we're making. It's going to revolutionize everything. And you're like, no, it's not. Like, at no point did you just go like, yeah, this is not happening. And so the Phantom never seemed like it was like there was no surprise when the Phantom didn't come out or like was taking forever to happen or whatever. Like, you looked at the Phantom and you were just like, these are lunatics talking really big about a thing that really doesn't seem like it's possible right now. But again, a lot of that was interface focused, and a lot of the conversations were a lot of that. You know, it was a lot of just like, you know, yeah, like there's just not going to be a way for this to really line up and work. And so the Phantom never seemed like it was ever a thing. I guess, you know, I think even by the time I took that appointment, by the time I took that appointment at E3, they had already been around long enough that everyone was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's go see the Phantom. Yeah, come on, dude, let's go see the Phantom. You got time? We're going to see the Phantom. You want to come? Yeah, I'm gonna come see the Phantom. I'll come with you. Fuck it. I got half an hour. Let's go see the Phantom. Like, it just, they just didn't, you know, they did not seem like they were actually serious. And that's not, you know, you see a lot of technology, I think, come and go in and around video games where you look at that and just go like, yeah, like, you know, you're very enthusiastic about this dream scenario where this is going to revolutionize everything. But like logistically, if you really look at it and you look at like developer support for a weird device and all of the hurdles that a new thing has to clear, at no point did that seem like it was ever going to get anywhere where it needed to go. You know what I mean? And so it's easy, you know, having been around it, and even at that point, I'd been around it for kind of a while. It's very easy to sniff that stuff out and just go like, I really don't think this is going to fucking happen. Like the Nuon was the same way. At no point were you like, the Nuon is going to revolutionize. The CDI was the same way. Like at no point when seeing the CDI at trade shows and everything, like at no point did you go like, oh, well, the CDI is definitely going to change everything. You looked at it and you went like, okay, this seems like you sure did make a compact disc-based thing that doesn't run games very well, and you're sitting in front of me trying to extol the virtues of it as a game machine, but I have eyeballs and I'm looking at it, and then after I'm done looking at your CDI for 45 minutes, I'm going to go meet with Nintendo and see what they have for the holiday season. And, you know, like the difference is immediately apparent. You're like, okay, well, this game is performant. It runs well. It plays a certain way. Whereas on the CDI, it's like, oh, okay, this is like, you have not prioritized any part of the game feel whatsoever with the way your controls work and how responsive they are or aren't. Like just top to bottom, you're just like, yeah, dude, this thing's fucking, like these people are crazy if they think that this is going to be like a proper a competitive video game machine ever. They're out of their fucking minds. And so the Phantom, you know, like felt like it was more in that camp. The Gizmondo felt like that, you know, like Gizmondo at some point hired a really well-liked public relations team to throw an event for them. And this PR team, and they gave them like a zillion Gizmondos, which is why I now have a zillion Gizmondos. But like they had a launch event in San Francisco, and it was just like, you know, hey, come by and play the games. They had rented out a bar, and it was like, come have some drinks. We got the Gizmondo. And you're like, okay. And everyone who went, they basically at some point said, anybody who wants to come can come. And so like people who were not on our editorial team were going, who would never go to a party like that, who would never go to an event like that, because they were just like, fuck it, dude, bring anybody. Please. I mean, we want this event to look well attended, because our client gave us the amount of money to throw a big, well-attended event, and also no one wants to come. And so it was close enough to the office that, like, you know, producers and engineers and you know, like people who were nowhere near content creation on GameSpot were all going to the fucking Gizmondo event, and all of them left with a Gizmondo. And then the vast majority of them the next day came in and set a Gizmondo on my desk and said, I don't want this fucking thing. Like, okay, I'll take it. And so that's why I have a gigantic box full of Gizmondo stuff to this very day. But you know, like seeing that thing and playing those games, at no point are you like, oh, this is the Game Boy is fucked, man. Like that's the thing with the N-Gage as well. Like, you know, at no point in any part of that, you look at it and you're like, wow, this thing runs like the PlayStation game Pandemonium. That's crazy. Like, wow, Tony Hawk running on a phone. That's insane. But like, it still was not like fun or good to play it there. The novelty of being able to play a polygonal video game on a handheld device was like, that was real. And you're like, huh, look at that. That's kind of cool. I don't want to do this ever again, but that's neat that you can do it. So like, you know, like you just see these devices coming from a mile away. And you can tell, you know, I think if you've been doing it long enough, you can kind of tell by the way that they're pitching the device, how humble they are or aren't about what they've got and what they're doing with it. You really, again, you get to a point where you can see that stuff coming from a mile away. So no, at no point was anyone that I know or myself personally, I don't know anyone who thought the Phantom was going to ever be a thing. I think the Intellivision Amico is probably a good modern version of that, where you look at it and go like, oh, there's some charming things about this pitch when you're talking about it in terms of a family device. Like, sure, okay. Like, yeah, I see the window you're going for. I think the way you're kind of hanging Nintendo out to dry and talking negatively about them to try to get your pitch to sound better is like, doesn't line up with reality. But hey, people have lied about competitors before. Sega and Nintendo used to do it all the time. So sure, I guess, whatever. But at no point did did you look at the Amico and go like, this is going to be a real factor. This is going to be a game changer. There's going to be wow, look at this. You looked at it and went like, okay. Like I could see, do you carve out some kind of tiny niche for family games here? Like the best thing you could say about it is you look at it and go like, oh, this would be like a really interesting environment to play Jackbox games in and nothing else. Or like a football game because you had a little screen you could call plays on like it was a Dreamcast or something, But again, from a hardware perspective, it was not competitive hardware, and even with their kind of lowered expectations of we're trying to make a family device and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, hey, we took a bunch of phone parts and stuffed them into a box. That never seemed like a compelling pitch. And then when the way they talked about software pricing and like, the Amico people made a lot of promises that, once you really kind of thought about the numbers for more than 10 minutes and tried to like do the backwards math that you would have to do to get to a point where their games could be $20 or, whatever their pitch was for pricing. You go like, oh, okay, yeah, developers are not going to make any money on this. Why would they support it? Why would a developer make a game for this device if they are being forced to sell it for such a low price? That means the cost of development can only really be this because they have to do manufacturing for this, and so their cut is this. And you just look at it and go like, how is anyone going to make money on this? This is stupid. Like it's really, it's crazy. And so the Amico stuff, the Amico story, whatever it was at the time, like just fell apart once you held it up to any level of scrutiny whatsoever. But with most platforms, I don't feel like you even need that level of scrutiny. Like there is sort of a gut feeling. There is sort of a, like when you looked at the Xbox, the original Xbox, when Microsoft was shipping the original Xbox, there was a feeling there of just like, okay, this will matter. Like this is, like I don't know that it's going to matter as much as they say it is, and they were out there pitching it like it's the future of video gaming and this is going to change the world. And you look at it and you're like, all right, you got a hard drive in it. That's cool. Is it going to play the same games as a PS2? Some of them. Okay. You got any of your own games? Some of them. Are they good? Some of them. All right. Well, okay. Bloodwake, huh? Okay. But, like they had familiar names as well. The Xbox, you could at least say like, okay, well, EA is going to be present in some capacity. You've got some known names on that system in addition to your like Halos or whatever. Remember, like, Halo at the time was like a legendary name, but only to lunatics. Because they were like, that's the Mac game that never shipped. And you're like, yeah, it's also not an RTS anymore. So I don't know, not really, but sure. And then DOA 3 was fun. Or whatever it was. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but the I guess that would, I would say is the opposite of that, is like when you saw the Xbox, you saw like, okay, this seems like it'll be a legitimate competitor in this space somehow. Like, is it going to take over? Is it going to knock PlayStation 2 out? Whatever. I don't know about that. But you look at it and go like, okay, yeah, you're making a video game machine that plays video games well. So few hardware manufacturers actually get to that point that, that it's kind of crazy. Luke from Saskatoon writes in. Home of half of the Sons of Prozac, Canada's ultimate rap duo. Hey, Jeff, I was wondering what the deal was with GameTap. It was around when I was in the dorm in university and seemed really great. I remember playing through Far Cry, Hitman, Blood Money, and the Sam and Max episodic stuff on there. I feel like there were quite a few console ports at a time when they weren't that easy to come by. Where did it come from and where did it go? I don't know. It came from Ted Turner. I don't know, like, or did he just buy it? I don't know. GameTap was a Turner thing. Like, they were running it out of the same building as like Adult Swim or something for some period of time, if I remember right. But GameTap eventually became a subscription service that had like kind of, you would get access to some games, and they did some PC ports of Saturn games that like at the time was really crazy because, you know, Saturn emulation wasn't really a thing. And so there were like versions of games there that were like strange to see. But they were trying to sell a subscription service that would give you access to games. And then at one point they decided to start like a content vertical. And so there were people that were working on like not necessarily game reviews or anything per se, but like that were writing articles and doing videos and interviews and stuff for GameTap. Like there was a specific, like I think like the last season of Space Ghost in a technical sense exists as a GameTap thing. Like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, they did some GameTap exclusive episodes that were weird, if I remember right. But like, yeah, I don't know. There was one the Game Cop himself. You may know him as the Game Cop. But Giancarlo Veronini was there for a period of time. I want to say was Jeremy Parrish there for anyway, they a handful of people, I think a handful of ex-Ziff people ended up out there working on GameTap for a brief period of time, but GameTap never really seemed like they Cifaldi was there. Okay, all right, yeah. GameTap never really seemed like it truly understood at high levels anyway. It never really understood what it wanted to be, and they did some really interesting things there that don't get really talked about because it was such a come and go kind of service. But like in terms of like emulation or like the things they were doing for like like games that were really weird to have on a PC based service, you know, that like they had a handful of Sega games that were just like, oh yeah, it's weird that this is here. It's weird that you ported this at all. How did this happen? Who did this? Who did this work? What the fuck happened? Yeah, so there was some interesting stuff on GameTap. I still think the best thing that came out of GameTap is the Lady Sovereign interview. Where someone cut this together, like they interview. My understanding is that they interviewed Lady Sovereign, and her answers were so unusable that they ended up just pasting them together into like a nonsense video. This doesn't work on audio, so I don't know that I will play it, but look up Quick Hit Lady Sovereign on YouTube. That's a video. Okay, all of the top comments on this video are people mentioning me, so I've gone and done it again and mentioned this video every 1 to 9 years. Apparently, I mentioned the Lady Sovereign video. It's a great video. But yeah. David from Texas writes in with like I vaguely remember this, and this sounds ridiculous. It just goes to show that like a lot of this stuff was not figured out. How to do consumable items in games, or even later on how to sell individual stuff in games or whatever. But this is a little Gran Turismo story here. It says, in honor of the GT news lately, I want to break down the Gran Turismo 5 paint chip system, which was the most insane thing I've ever seen that no one remembers. In Gran Turismo 5 on PS3, you could buy cars at the dealership or buy them from the used car lot, which had a random selection every few races. When you bought, say, a Lancer with a blue pearl paint job, you would also get a bucket of blue pearl paint with the car. Now you can go customize your car at the auto store and you can paint your car, but only the paint that you had in your inventory. So you could use that blue pearl paint on any other car, but it was consumable. And there was no other way to get that paint without buying another car. Every 30 cars got you a special paint color, as well as some standard paints for a daily login bonus, and you could collect over 2,000 types of paint in total. This meant that when you were playing online, you would see a little lime green Fiat, and you would know that the paint came from a rare Lambo that they then used the consumable paint from, and it was crazy. I was collecting rare cars and expensive cars that I wasn't interested in just for the orange and other exotic paint colors. That's fucking crazy. Sadly, later on in the game's lifespan, Polyphony added some DLC that I think was $3 that included 50 buckets of paint, including chrome and gold colors, so that made things less rare provided you paid up. It was such an insane system, and I kind of loved it, and we'll never see it again, sadly. I love weird shit like this. Yeah, that's it kind of sounds like the Destiny 1 shaders in a weird way. But that's a ridiculous system. That is an insane system that I feel like would only exist as a Japanese studio experimenting with the idea of consumables and all of that sort of stuff. It's such a it's just such a crazy system. I vaguely remember that hearing about that, like, oh yeah, I guess, but I was not a big GT5 player. But I feel like that's a very Gran Turismo thing to do, right? Like Gran Turismo is a franchise that I think is like largely like, you know, except for the part where you drive the cars and it drives realistically. Gran Turismo is a franchise that is built on insanity. It is built on, there's going to be a menu in here and it's just going to be a jazz cafe type thing. And this is where you get your missions. And then you got to take your car to the car wash. And when you go to the car wash, it plays this jaunty little tune. And then you're going to go here and do that. Like like everything about Gran Turismo where they try to make it more than just a bunch of menus is like glorious and also total insanity. And that's I think it's really great that they've done that so many different times over the years, where it's like, here's this really nice looking menu that is like damn near impossible to use if you've used any interface in the last 10 years, because this just seems like the most backwards looking thing on the planet. And you're like, I don't even know how to, I just want to buy a car. How do I went to the dealership and I can't find it there. Do I have to go to a different dealership? What the fuck am I doing? You know, like just the way that they built all that stuff is so bonkers. And you know, good on them, I guess. Grant writes in, asks, do you think Sony will ever make a single player first person shooter ever again? He says, you'd have thought that Insomniac would have been the perfect opportunity, but no. I'm just so bored of all their third-person action-adventure games and wish that they would have a bit of variety in their lineup. Just don't use the Horizon IP for it. I've got no idea why they have such a hard-on for Horizon, because I've never heard anyone care in the real world. That's fair. I don't know. The Horizon games are relatively well liked, I suppose, but yes, I suppose if we're talking about real world penetration, no one's talking about Horizon. It's sold millions of copies, and also I feel like everyone just goes like, ugh, about it whenever it comes up. Like, people enjoyed those games, and also no one... But if they never made another one, like, no one would go, they need to make another Horizon. Like, it just feels like Horizon came out and people enjoy it and they bought it. And, you know, because it's a big, well-marketed, first-party, big, beautiful-looking game, and, you know, whatever, it is what it is. But also, there's something about Horizon that has always just felt like, I don't know. Whatever. The first game I thought was really great. And the second one I thought was really, really, really less great. But what are you going to do? Anyway, do I think that Sony will ever make a single-player first-person shooter ever again? No, I guess not. I don't know. Like, I don't think that there's just enough of a market for single-player first-person shooter campaigns that don't exist as part of some larger live service game. I could see them trying to make a fully featured first-person shooter that is also a big multiplayer thing and has a campaign, but that's such a competitive space, and Call of Duty, well, hey, if Call of Duty actually crumbles, which is, I think we've been here before where we've said like, oh, Call of Duty is on the ropes, but they pulled it together, and I think we're on that cycle again where they will probably they will reboot their reboot, and they will go, Call of Duty is, we're all about boots on the ground gameplay, and they'll get out there and they'll win everybody back by just saying like, we're going back to our roots, and then players will go, yay, and they'll be able to squeeze another 4 years out of it. But like, I guess like, Killzone would not exist strictly as a single player shooter. They would have to make a multiplayer mode, and yeah, maybe they would make a campaign, but I don't know that. Again, like, if you've got an amount of money and you want to try to get in there and make a profit and make something new and do something, is a first person shooter of any kind, is that the best place to spend that money? Don't you want to find something that maybe is a little less trafficked? Like, it's not 2009 anymore. It's not like the initial land rush that happened after Call of Duty's success. That year of like Call of Duty and Halo 3 and all that stuff, and then like a zillion shitty fucking first person shooters suddenly came up on the 360 and PS3, and they were all bad, and they all, like, no one's going like, where's the new Bet on Soldier, right? No one's going like, where's Darkest of Days 2, or, like any of that bullshit that, that came up around then. You did have some good games that kind of came out around that. You had your Singularities and things like that, but like Singularity is a great example as to why that stuff doesn't exist anymore, because they made a really cool single player first person shooter, and then it sold what it sold, and they went like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know, we're the Call of Duty people now. And so, yeah, I don't think that Sony specifically needs to have a first person shooter in a world where Call of Duty became a platform exclusive. If the Activision acquisition resulted in a scenario where suddenly that franchise was no longer on PlayStation, absolutely, I think we would already see Sony trying to fill that void with some kind of campaign, some kind of Call of Duty sized bet of just like, well, we've got to do a campaign, and we've got to do multiplayer, and then we should probably think of a third thing to do there as well, like whatever. But like, I just don't see them necessarily wanting to go all the way with that sort of stuff. I would suspect that anything they do would not necessarily go in that direction. There was Dark Outlaw Games, the Jason Blundell studio. You can go watch my interview with Jason Blundell on the YouTube channel, and it's in the podcast feed as well as audio. He's a guy with roots in making first person shooters, and so it's entirely possible that they would make something that could be in that vein, but also I would expect them to do something that has a strong multiplayer component, because that's just video games. So yeah, I don't really see a need for Sony to do it big as a single player thing anyway. So yeah, I don't know. Anything's always possible, but I don't know, like, how do you build the business case for that? Right? Let's see. Damien writes in to talk about audio in headphones for money. Sea of Thieves updated this week and introduced enhanced audio by Embody Audio, which is a company. While the majority of features are free, they have included a paid version that involves sending pictures of your head to a third-party company so as to map the head for personalized sound. The community feedback seems entirely negative, with many users saying that the audio is bass boosted and has weird, muddy reverb to distinguish between the sounds, which does very little to help. Directly unrelated, but I've noticed sponsored posts from Sea of Thieves partners promoting the software. Even in jest, it seems really weird to promote an advantage for hearing things that someone else hasn't. And he's included some screenshots from people that are like Sea of Thieves streamers that are saying, like, if you had enhanced audio enabled, you would have heard me boarding your ship. Which is just a trash. It's a trash way to market this stuff anyway. Sea of Thieves have been on a run with odd paid features, with pirate profiles, paying money for a clean slate pirate introduced, and private custom server subscription service being promised for early next year. Can things really be this dire? So I can't really speak to Sea of Thieves specifically because I don't play Sea of Thieves. But this company that is doing this for Sea of Thieves started doing this for Call of Duty last year. And it was a $20 fee, if I remember right, to use, like, you scan a QR code in the game with your phone, and then you take pictures of of your head, and then it says, oh, okay, we've ginned up a custom profile for your head, and now you can enable it in game. As well as you can select what type of headphones you're wearing, like if you're wearing closed back or open back or whatever. Like they have for specific brands or whatever. And so this company got to the photos of your ear thing before Mark Cerny ever did. I tried it with Call of Duty when it came out last year. And Call of Duty last year, this year it is as well, but I feel like Call of Duty last year was very much a footsteps game. And so, and it's, it's hard to really kind of figure out what's the, where does the I paid for this and thus it's better start, and the reality start, whatever it is. I will say that, like, so I tried their headphone profile and I was like, this is all right. This seems okay. Like, I don't, is it more directional? Is it more 3D? And they do have like a version you can use for free that is not personalized. And so if you just want to turn their thing on without sending pictures of your ears, you can. But I went ahead and sent photos of my ears and paid them their ear money. And it seemed all right. Interestingly enough, when I did that last year, the way it was all phrased, it felt like it was written in such a way that it was like, okay, this is only going to work for this year, and it's going to expire this year, these ears, and then it's over. And I loaded it up. I loaded up this year's Call of Duty. This wasn't in the beta for Call of Duty this year, so I was like, oh, maybe whatever deal they did with this company, it just expired and whatever else. But then in the final version of the game, that stuff is in there again. And I was like, oh, interesting. I'll turn this on and see what it does and see what they're doing. And like my profile was still there and it all still worked. So if you paid for it last year, you can still turn it on in this year's game without paying them additional money. And so I don't know, like, there are cases to be made for tuning the frequencies in such a way. But like, I also think that, like, why is this a paid feature? Like, if this is something that we want games to do, whether it's Dolby Atmos sound in headphones or, like various kind of headphone support and what have you, like, why aren't we just doing it? Like, yeah, this is Creative Labs. This is just like an advanced version of Creative Labs EAX effects or something. Like, this is just kind of a strange, it's strange. But I did turn it on last year and I was pleased with the results, I guess I would say. I didn't sit there and A/B test it for an extensive length of time. So I am not the person to tell you, yes, it's definitely better or it's obviously worse or whatever, but I did not find the audio in Call of Duty to be bass boosted or in a way that was, detracted from the experience or whatever. But like, but it seemed okay. It seemed kind of all right in terms of just like, oh, I hear these footsteps. Like this guy is right around this corner. This guy is, I know he's about to appear in this door and I'm going to fucking shoot him in his face. It felt like it worked for that. So I don't know. But that stuff has existed before. And yeah, I don't know. Like, is it a dire thing? And is it a horrible thing that games are doing this? I don't know. Like, they're partnering with an external company. Like, they're not building this themselves, and that external company wants theirs, right? So naturally, they're going to charge for it. It feels like the sort of like partner, like licensed integration sort of thing that you get when you have like, oh, this game supports my weird keyboard lights. And so when I do a fatality, the keyboard glows red in Mortal Kombat 11, or, you know, like some of the other silly shit that games have done with like keyboard light integration over the years. Except that you don't have to pay a set fee for that integration. This is something that, you know, you because you're not buying hardware specific. If they sold headphones, I'm sure it would be a thing where like, oh, the headphones, you know, you bought the headphones, you get the thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's it is an odd feature, an odd product, I will say. That much for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Like I found it offensive at first, like very much like, what the fuck, these scumbags, what are they doing? And then I bought it because I was like, well, I want to talk about this on the podcast, and so I should try it out. And so last year I tried it out, and I was like, oh, actually, you know, like this actually seems like it might be all right. So I don't know. That's not, I would not necessarily recommend it because I don't necessarily think it's a dramatic improvement or whatever. And it sounds like maybe in Sea of Thieves it is not a good, not a particularly great feature, but I don't know. Last question, Andrew writes in, when I think of DDR and Lumines, I think of Boom Boom Dollar and Shinin, respectively. Why does it hurt the soul more to have a Shinin-less Lumines than it does to have a dollar-free DDR? Well, it's because they were shipping, you know, DDR almost annually, right? It's because there were so many DDR games coming out, and occasionally they would have, you know, you would have like, oh, this has got the fucking the KOG remix of Boom Boom Dollar, so it's even faster. This is great. And yeah, I look at it like that. They were making more DDR games, and so there were DDR games that existed before Boom Boom Dollar, and there were DDR games that existed after Boom Boom Dollar. Whereas Lumines, they've really only made a few of them. And they issue them at such intervals that by the time a new one is coming out, you're nostalgic for the old original Lumines, right? And so Shinin being the very first level of Lumines 1, you go like, oh, I need it. I need it. So yeah, they're both vital. I mean, Boom Boom Dollar is the top of the heap when it comes to DDR. I think Third Mix is the best DDR. They made a lot of Dance Dance Revolution games after Third Mix. And then in the US, they made games with completely different soundtracks on top of that. And like they went a billion different directions with DDR. Solo Bass Mix 2000, you know, like all the fucking crazy shit that they did. But I think they topped out at Third Mix, and Boom Boom Dollar's in Third Mix. So I look at the songs that are part of that era, the, you know, that Eurobeat stuff that they were there with, and Second Mix is also great. Garbage Pail Kids also third series Garbage Pail Kids, Third Mix DDR. That's it. That's all that matters. Everything else, bullshit. But Butterfly's a great song. I mean, there's a lot of great DDR. But I think, but all of my favorite DDR is all from that era specifically. You know, I think anything past like, I don't know, past fifth mix or whatever, I think you start to see like diminishing returns. But like what? Yeah, DDR Max 2. Yeah, nothing wrong with DDR Max 2, but also the Dreamcast. I have my DDR mats for Dreamcast because I bought a pair of DDR mats for Dreamcast. And it's real dumb because they only put out like 2 DDR games on Dreamcast, and it's like club remix. It's like second mix club version, I think is what it is. And then another, like it's not the right ones. They did not put out the right DDR games on Dreamcast at all. But yeah, for me, third mix is the peak. But there were several years after that were still plenty good. Before it just fell into oblivion. I don't know. But yeah, man, Shinin' is a great song. Luminous Arise is really solid. The soundtrack on it's really good. But that doesn't mean there's still not some part of me that's just like, man, they should be cool if they licensed Shinin' for this yet again, even though they've done that over and over again. What if the last track in Luminous Arise was like a really crazy remix of that song, you know? Yeah, Heavenly Star. Yeah, sure. Put Heavenly Star is a fucking fantastic song. Are you kidding me? Put that in there too. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the program. Thanks everybody for listening. I was looking to see if there was any other short emails, but then I found like 5 more really long ones. That's going to do it for us here this week. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back next week with even more podcasting. And then of course I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do something with video games. We'll play some games. We'll talk about some other stuff. And yeah, all of that shit. So yeah, coming back next Tuesday for the podcast. Coming back tomorrow, play some games. And hit up the Patreon if you want an ad-free version of the show. Patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann for more details on that. And have a good one.